Hey everybody, it's Sunday. I know you missed Saturday Night Live last night, so I figured I'd do a cold opening and just say, how's everyone doing? How you doing? I'm not stalling. I promise I'm not stalling. Trying to find the intro for this show. That would be so unprofessional if I was doing that. Because Meredith always renames things on me. She says she doesn't, but I come into rooms and things are named completely different things. No, we're going to have a great show. We have Alex with us. C. Michael Lanning's with us. Meredith's going to take over. I got a little something to do for a couple minutes, but don't worry, I'll be right back with you guys. And I was hoping that we would have our other guests so I can introduce him now, but he's probably running just a minute late. That's my fault. I sent the links late, so I apologize to him. He'll be here in just a minute. Until then, let's check out our intro. Welcome to the Sunday Comics Brunch, where we dine on comics and comics headlines, hosted by Mr. Anderson and Meredith Logren. Join them and their guests as they go over the comics headlines from this week and their projects, brought to you by the Comics News Wire and Geek Insider. Warning and disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this live feed are those of the guests, speakers, and or hosts, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs, official policies, ethics, or positions of the content providers, advertisers, additional hosts, and or guests, hosting sites, groups, or entities attached to this programming. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning.
I love my advocate this morning, my avatar this morning. I've never been so pretty. Meredith, take over. I'll be back.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Comics Brunch. I'm Meredith Logren. I am the associate editor over at Geek Insider, as well as the executive producer of the Geek Insider podcast. We will have some news from Geek Insider as far as what's going on with our YouTube channel, but make sure that you tune in and follow me because I will have that news. I'm also one of the founding members of Terraform Comics, and we have some pretty exciting stuff that's coming down the pipeline very, very soon. So you're going to want to tune in for that. And I am going to pass the mic over to C. Michael Lanning so he can talk. And by the way, before I do that, I'm just going to let you know that C. Michael Lanning is one of the co-hosts, and we will be updating our intro to include him very soon.
Hi, I'm C. Michael Lanning. I'm a freelance artist who has done projects with Silverline Comics and other upcoming projects coming up. Also, you might know me as a co-anchor for Week Ended on Friday. Like I said, if you see me on Friday, that means if you see my face, that means it's Friday, and that means the weekend is getting started. So, and I'm interested to hear about Alex down here.
Hi there, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. And I just want to say right now that I appreciate you guys posting all my promotional art on your Facebook page. It's really helped a lot.
Very cool. So now what's going on with you, Alex? You've got a Kickstarter going.
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, big exciting news. After a year of promoting our Indiegogo page, we're finally going to be launching at the end of February. This is our very first crowdfunding campaign. We're hoping it'll be a success, and it's for Xener, Master of the Mind. Now, the plot behind this story is it tells the origins of a superhero named Axel de Vera, who has immense psychic powers, but the kicker is he has a very fragile mentality to use them. He's kind of been through a lot, so he has he's kind of, for a better word, he's kind of a little one flew over the cuckoo's nest a little bit. So this book we have planned, it tells his origins, basically from his boy, what he's been through, getting through it here, and now he becomes the superhero he is now. So the character is created by me, and the story is written by my editor, Webb Lanyard, and it is drawn by our artist Juan. And these are fantastic guys, and we are very excited to be sharing this book with you. We have some fantastic awards to give to people if they back this this Indiegogo.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, because I did say Kickstarter earlier, so that was on me. Why Indiegogo is instead of Kickstarter? I'm a little bit curious because having a crowdfund happening right now, I did a little bit of research and I decided to go with Kickstarter first. So what was your decision in going with Indiegogo?
Well, this was kind of a team decision based on me and Webb, and we did our research on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo and a few other places, and we came to the decision that Indiegogo actually for indie comics is a much better site. It has a bit more of a success rate, and there's a lot more options that we can give people, and it'll help us really make sure that Zener is a success. So we felt that Indiegogo, especially for our very first one, was the best option for us, you know. And for like a year now, we've been using it to like promote Zener, and honestly, we've gotten pretty used to it. I don't think we could go to Kickstarter if we wanted to, you know.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, because I know a lot of people who feel like the complete opposite, you know. And see, Michael, have you ever done a campaign on either one?
No, I've never ran a campaign on either one. I've had some stuff on campaigns for either one, but I've never ran one. No.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were to pick a platform, which one do you think you might lean towards, and why? I'm kind of curious. And now that Rob's back, I'd love to ask him too.
No, Rob's answered this one, but yeah, bro, I would personally go with Kickstarter because of the stuff that I've heard behind the scenes as far as some of the Indiegogo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Indiegogo because it takes some money out immediately as opposed to waiting for that time. I like that aspect of it. I kind of wish Kickstarter would do that, but
yeah, kind of one of the reasons we went with Indiegogo too. You know,
yeah.
But again, our biggest decision was because we saw a lot of indie creators using Indiegogo, so it was kind of more of I guess you could say it was more of a common place for people like us, you know. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, the scary thing for me with Kickstarter is it's an all or nothing, whereas Indiegogo allows you to have that option of like a flexible goal or a set goal, and I guess for me personally, when I think of Indiegogo, I think of a more international audience. For whatever reason, and I don't know why or even where that perception came from. It just seems like a lot of the people that I've connected with, maybe in England or elsewhere, has used that to launch their platform. And then Kickstarter, I don't know. For me, it just seems a little bit more familiar, and I can't even explain why.
Well, I think Kickstarter kind of had its reputation for being a gatekeeper there for a little bit. And
whoa, slow down. Let's not do that.
Okay.
That whole thing, like that's all rumor.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of projects on there. There's a difference between gatekeeping, just to be fair, and literally doing something
But
that's very.
I will say that I was saying that it was a rumor. So
no, I just want to make sure. 'Cause then we get the emails.
Yeah.
We're not taking a side. All I will say is that even Indiegogo kicked off the same projects that some people are complaining about. So you can't have it both ways. I'm not saying Michael's wrong. He's heard the same things I have, but I also know just a little bit more about it, knowing that those same projects were kicked off Indiegogo too for the same reasons. But you don't hear that. That's my point. You can't have a totally you can't have a book, and I'm trying to be careful because we're live, where you talk about killing someone where it's against the law to even suggest it. And those were the types of things that they were kind of getting kicked off for. That's not censorship, that's laws. There's a difference. I don't want to step in it, but I do want to say that because I know a lot of people get upset about that whole topic, both sides. We're not taking away. Michael's right.
So going back to the question though, Rob, I know with Terraform Comics, we are putting together a campaign on Kickstarter. What was your decision to go to Kickstarter versus Indiegogo then?
Always comes down to where your fan base is. You know, there are a lot of people who say that you have to be politically one-sided to or be part of a group to be on Indiegogo, and then the same set for Kickstarter. Ultimately, that's all noise. It's where your fan base is. Where are the people who you are going to are going to be trying to ask for help going to be? And it comes down to that. I don't like Indiegogo. I've never hidden that fact. But I know people who do fantastic on it. I do great on Kickstarter, and I know people who can't do great on Kickstarter. So it's where you can draw. The one thing I do want to say, though, just a few things. Kickstarter's actually made more money than Indiegogo has. That's just a fact for comic books. $22 million last year, just a factual thing. And that was in October. We haven't heard the final number just yet either. Plus, Kickstarter draws the bigger stars, typically.
And I want to push that back to like Alex, like doing the research that he has and seeing, okay, I think my audience is here. That's where they've developed those relationships and things like that. I think that's really important to pay attention to. And to what Rob was saying, knowing where your audience is.
Right. And back on what Michael said about like the bigger stars, I think that's part of the other reason like we chose Indiegogo over Kickstarter. I think because like Kickstarter, it is used by the bigger stars. I think by that I mean the stars that actually have been like the creators who have actually been established in comics for a while. You know, they're not necessarily starting out like we are. They're not. They've been in this game for a while, so they've got their name out there, so they're people are a little more familiar with them. So I think that's why it helps on Kickstarter. But for Indiegogo, it's better for us because there are a bunch of like people, creators on there who are like, just like I said, whether they're starting out or they're trying to get their name out there. So it's kind of a support group, you know. And I always say to succeed in this business, you have to give a little to give a little, and get a little, and it's how we all grow and become better is by supporting each other. So like hashtag indie support. I've tried to get that hashtag going. So like. We're a firm believer in supporting our fellow indie creators, so that's another reason we chose Indiegogo.
Mm-hmm. Now, I feel the same way as far as
Meredith, let me just finish what I was saying because you did interrupt, and this is important for the conversation, very much so. What I don't understand about the connective tissue I understand it, but I don't understand why it's not better known. The big difference here between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and this is just the truth, is the growing spiderweb effect Kickstarter has created. That is the amazing thing Kickstarter has that Indiegogo doesn't have. And a lot of creators aren't aware of this. I don't even know if Alex is aware of this. There are people that can follow me on Kickstarter, and every project I back, they now see. They get an email about it. They know when I back something. That does not happen on Indiegogo. Kickstarter promotes your book 48 hours now before it ends, sends out to anyone who asked for a reminder that they're going to do that. Indiegogo does not do that. Also, they do projects they love on Kickstarter, which is something that Indiegogo doesn't do. I'm not saying that anything about Indiegogo, because if you can make it work, Luke Stone in our group does a fantastic job in Indiegogo. He's raised more in Indiegogo than I have in any one single campaign on Kickstarter so far. So I'm not doubting the power of Indiegogo. But as a newer creator, just so I can say it out loud for the people watching, it is better to use Kickstarter if you're trying to build a fan base. If you have a fan base, it can be better to go to Indiegogo if you can drag your fan base over there. I've had a lot of problems both backing the campaigns on Indiegogo, and they still owe me money to this date. And I'm not the only one that they have not paid. I know horror stories. I've never heard a horror story with Kickstarter, but I know horror stories with Indiegogo. So that's why I'm nervous about it. I promote both equally. I don't take a side, but me personally, I like the spiderweb effect because if anyone is following me, they get to learn about all the things, not only when I launch something, but when I back a friend's project. Let's say that I'm tight on cash, and I've been tight on cash for the last couple of months. I can still help my friends out by giving them $1 on their campaign. Just $1 shoots that message of approval to all the people who are following me. And I know for a fact that when I back a campaign, I get a thank you from my friends because they get a little traction after I back it. Because I have I think 200 people who are following me, 300 people who are following me, and I didn't even ask for it. They followed me all on their own. Plus, anyone who's ever backed a campaign of mine gets an update instantly too. They don't necessarily have to follow me to get that update. I just think that's a wonderful thing that Kickstarter does. But that was one thing I did want to mention. And as far as stars go, I think the star power helps that because when Keanu Reeves showed up, suddenly the game changed. There were suddenly so many new backers. Of course, you have to tap into it, and there's more competition, I think, on Kickstarter now than there is Indiegogo. I do think Indiegogo has far less projects going at a certain time, so that's an advantage to Indiegogo.
Right.
Not that we want to make Alex. I don't know where the idea is coming from, but not that we want to make Alex nervous about where his campaign is going, Rob. But it speaks to from sorry, and see, I'll give you the mic in just a second. It speaks to knowing where your audience is, and I was going to say that with even with your social media, I have personally signed up for so many different sites because I am logging my name. I'm making sure that my name is mine and it stays with me. And so I sign up for everything. Do I pay attention to everything? Do I pay attention to Twitter as much as I think I should? No, I have it. It's active. It has a pulse, but is my audience there? Are they engaged? No, it's more on Facebook. It's, building up through YouTube and things like that. So finding those platforms, even for crowdfunds, it's so important to know where your audience is, cater to them, nurture them, and they will follow you wherever you go. And speaking to, like, you can start on Indiegogo and just say, hey, I want to see what we can do, because now the pressure's not on to crowdfund and get this project out there. I'm going to see what it does over on the other platform. So if you start on Kickstarter and head over to Indiegogo or vice versa, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Right.
See, Michael?
Well,
I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I really wasn't. I was going to ask Alex about this because Zener, I was noticed that I saw an interview with you and you were talking about there's some mental health aspects to this book, isn't there?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again? I couldn't.
There's some mental health aspects to this book, isn't there?
Yes. Part of the what you see with his origin is kind of Zener going through this life of struggling with insanity and kind of being kept in a place where he's not allowed to do a lot of it. And you see the after effects of this, like everything, especially with his powers. Because when you have one thing I know is that with psychic powers is a lot of people who have them, you don't really see the pressure that's built on the actual mental aspect of using them. Because like with psychic powers, it's all about the mind. You gotta
Right.
this is your biggest tool when using them. Like with Professor X used it, Dean Gray used it, a lot of other people use it, but you never really see them struggling with kind of using it in a way that backlashes. And that's one of the things we want to explore with Zener is the kind of consequences of having these powers, but not necessarily the right mentality to use them. And like with Zener, you can see he's a really good guy. He's a healer. He's a helper. He wants to help the bad guys more than he wants to defeat them, because that's the kind of guy he is. But like at the same time, there's a lot of weariness on him because he's been through a lot, and you wonder. It's like post-traumatic stress disorder. You gotta wonder if he can actually do it. And he's struggling with that. And I think that's one of the biggest aspects we want to sell on this, because a lot of people struggle with stress and depression and a lot of other problems. And I feel like when they see Zener, they will relate to him. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Yeah. So you have that in mind. That's kind of the mental health aspect and awareness in mind when creating him.
Yes. That, like I said, that was the biggest aspect. Like the biggest aspect with him was like having mental powers, but not exactly the right mind to use them. Because like I said, you don't really see a lot of this with a lot of other psychic superheroes or even villains. You see them having all these abilities of the mind, but never really what happens if they aren't right in the mind to use them. So that's a big selling point for Zener.
Yeah, because Xavier's just he's just cool and calm with it. You can imagine all those voices in your head will eventually drive you nuts one way or another. Yeah. I got kids, so they drive me nuts with all their voices, and they're outside of my head. So
right. I mean,
I did want to ask you a question about to everybody who's here, because we've all created characters and stories and things like that. Where do you get your character development from? Is it from personal experience? Is it from the things that you consume? I mean, what is like the biggest motivating factor in developing that character and their backstory?
Well, I think it's a lot of other things. I think a lot of it is from what I consume, as a fanatic too. With Zener and a lot of other my characters, one of the big things we try to do with Energy Comics and what we have planned is taking something that's been done before, but trying to putting an inverted or subverted spin on it, in a way that says, okay, this is something I've seen before, but this is a unique twist, And with Zener, that's kind of the big thing. When I was coming up with Zener, I had this original idea for a character that had all these psychic powers, not just like telepathy and telekinesis, but a lot of the other minor stuff you don't see, like mediumship or dowsing, things you would see in shows like Medium or like that. And putting this together, and eventually that evolved into kind of creating this character who, he was immensely powerful. He's like a psychic Superman, so he has like all these powers of the world, but not necessarily. He's not exactly the best at using them. It's like his biggest weakness is himself, and we kind of built on that. Just kind of going with what worked, and that eventually led to what Zener is now.
Well, I wanted to ask you a fun question then. So, if somebody were to ask you if you could have one superpower, what would it be? Is it like Zener?
Well, actually, it's a funny thing. A lot of the heroes we have kind of reflect on the superpowers I would want. I kind of actually named like 5 superpowers that I would want. Let's see. I think at the top of it, I actually, believe it or not, what I would want is the power of cartoon physics. Like to be like a living cartoon character who could like do really anything, and just like it'd be humorous while I'm saving the day. So like
I like that.
Mask or Looney Tunes. But at the same time, I do wish I had like Zener's telekinesis, because I feel like that's a very applicable superpower to use in everyday lives. And my other top 3 power is actually like storm manipulation. Kind of like my favorite X-Men is Storm, and I think it's really cool, the ability to control the weather, control the natural environment of nature. And so like those are the 3 top powers I would have, and actually that's kind of reflective in the 3 heroes we plan to introduce and run our universe through.
Mm-hmm. I want to toss that over to Michael because when we started collaborating on Reapers, you sent me the clay, and just from that we were able to shape it into a story. But what was your thinking behind that, the character development and stuff?
I just pay attention to other people around me. That's what it comes. Just draw from real life, draw from what people tell you. If you listen, people will tell you their problems. So you kind of gather from that, things like that. My mind wanders a lot, so I just kind of follow the path down. It goes down some weird paths. What can I tell you?
Mm-hmm.
But
I think that's the case with a lot of creators. Actually, like a lot of creators are thinkers more than they are doers, and their mind tends to wander. And through that, they come up with all these great ideas that they just want to share with people.
Mm-hmm. And so, see, when it comes to like superpowers and things like that, if do you find that you draw with the idea that like the superpowers that you want in your characters?
No, not really, because my most interesting, what I would want as far as a superpower, which is not as cool as cartoon physics, mind you. That's
cool.
Most original. What? I love it. Would be teleportation, because I just hate traveling, especially trying to get home after work. So but no. Again, it's just kind of my mind wondering, what if this happened? What if that happened? That kind of thing. And it just follows down the road, and eventually I have to claw my way back into reality. So.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like I guess in real life, like my superpower is just being able to shut up and listen and write, and the human condition and the horrors that sometimes we think and things like that. And it leans towards how my writing goes. And with Rob, with Barbara and even not even to put that in the same sentence, but with Bobby Gregory, with Cat Dad, there's that element of realism in there, but at the same time you're adding hero elements. Hey Rob, are you back?
You weren't talking to me. You were talking, but you didn't ask me a question.
Yeah, so what is your thought on that as far as incorporating how we want to have maybe our super selves in, or our favorite super elements into our stories and things? For me, it's more real, where it's not so much. I mean, I would love to be able to teleport, and I love the whole, changing weather and things like that, or being scooped up and being transported elsewhere. But like, when it comes to my writing, my superpower is really the humans, and where they're going to go, how dark they're going to get. What about you when it comes to your creative process?
I know you guys aren't going to like the answer, but I just create. I can't say it any other way than that. There is no method. There's nothing. There is, I get a story and I make it. And I know that sounds so easy, and it's not.
Well,
but it's
influences, though.
Life, obviously. I mean, but every story's different, right? See, I'm not a genre writer. That's the problem. When you're talking to someone like me, I can write anything, and I'm proving that steadily across my my comic book career right now, that there's not anything I can't touch and actually be good at. As far as making a story that people like, I've been able to go slice of life. I've been able to go for a younger audience. I've been able to go all ages. I've done a superhero thing. I've done a lot of it, and so far I've gotten that I can go that way, and I can flex, and I can change. So I don't really have anything. I don't have a method to give you guys. Go out and live life. It'll give you all the experience you need.
It really comes when it comes right down to it. That's like one of the best things you can do when it comes to creator. Like experience life and just just create. Because that's like that when it comes. I mean, as basic as it sounds, it is like the bare necessities of being a creator, a writer, or a drawer. You just gotta do it. And like you said, the process is not as simple as it sounds, but really it is like I said, it's the bare necessities of being a creator. You gotta create. It's the word is in the creator. You cannot have creator without create.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to take a little bit of a break. Speaking of creativity, here we go.
Have you ever wanted to be part of a writer's room? Come join us on Creativity in Progress every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Twitch and YouTube, the CIP network, where creativity comes to life.
So I have to ask a question. We're giving them some love and some bumps. I'm sure that we're not getting bumps on their show. How come they haven't been a guest yet? The least they could do, Meredith, is show up.
I'm working on it.
You know what I mean? Like, we're out here shelling for them. I think they deserve to sit down on the show for once. Don't you guys agree?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, you got to give a little to get a little. And
that's right.
All right. So Ethan Murphy and Nathan Beatty, make sure that you get over here. I will be in contact with you very soon. Creativity in Progress. I was actually on their show. It was a lot of fun. If you've never watched their show, basically what they do is they bring a guest in. They have somebody who's drawing the character. They roll the dice, kind of a little bit like D&D, and they pick a genre. They pick, like the protagonist, the antagonist, and then they talk about the character. So in the chat, they do some character development, and then they start weaving together this story with their guest. It's usually across 2 days. So it gives you time to think about the story and where it's going. And in the meantime, that the drawing is happening for that character. It's really kind of an interesting spin on storytelling and story creation. And every week is a little different. So kind of
like my kind of show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Rob, what were some of the news things that we were going to highlight for brunch? Do you have those handy? And just for anybody who's listening, I feel like I'm a little bit off. I woke up with a tiny bit of a migraine this past week. A little chunk of my tooth broke, and so it's like been irritating the gum. And I have a feeling that I've been grinding and like messing with that hole in my sleep. So I woke up and just like the whole side of my head just feels like pins.
That is not fun. I am sorry you have to go through that.
Yeah, but it's not a toothache. I think it's just everything that's around it now is like just irritated. So I do apologize if I am a little bit off today. Just letting you know, I'm like really trying not to drool on myself at this point. So
that's every day for me.
yeah.
To the point of the topics, we one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, besides our guests today, was the awards. The awards are in full swing. We have them going on. A lot of people like it. It's always funny when someone's like, "I didn't know about your award," and it's so painful because I'm like, "Ouch."
Yeah, we've been promoting that. Do you want to put the overlay up for a minute so we can talk about it?
Sure. Just give me 1 second. I'm actually updating our links for.
Oh, well, I can pop that up here if you want.
It's all good. I just needed to take a minute and get rid of what was in my link. to do it, because you know that disappears in the Apple for some reason. All right, so the awards ceremony this year, and I'm trying to call up. I think we have the StreamYard's doing that funky thing where I can't see the things that are there. Here it is. Geek Insider is going to host the first night on February 21st and kick off the festivities at 6 p.m. Eastern, where we give awards out for art. Then following that, the following week on the Sunday, same time, 6 p.m., Indie Volt gives out the awards for crowdfunding. Then we have the awards for words from the Chuck Shop Talk on the 7th of March. And then I'm going to wrap it up over at comicbookadvocates.com at 6 p.m. That's going to be the night we do the Hall of Fame. We're going to do the In Memoriam. By the way, if you know anyone who passed away in 2020 who was a creator, we want to give them their due. It doesn't matter what level they are. I don't care if they were amateur, not even technically a creator yet that it had something published. We want to give them their due. I mean, we're going to put up a picture. It's going to have their name. So I'd be very happy to do that. A couple creators, of course, we might have some insights. Some creators might want to talk about the creators that passed this year, because it was a painful year. This is going to be a very hard part of our program, but that'll be there. Plus the Hall of Fame, which we're still working on. And we're almost done with all the awards. In the next 2 weeks, all of them will be live. So this is a celebration of 2020 with the fans making all the choices. I didn't want to come back this year and somehow give you guys the winners and be like, oh, we're judging this. And going forward, we're going to be doing a hybrid system, which will involve the fans greatly. It will be a little different next year, but for now, it's all your choices, the fans. So this isn't a circle jerk award show. This isn't someone paying us to do this. We're not making any money. This is about celebrating an industry that, and part of that industry that never really gets acknowledged. I see all these different, oh, this is independent creator awards, and they're only giving it to their friends. How is that independent? That's not. It's no longer independent. You're just giving it to your friends. There are people in our contest I've met for the first time this year, and I'm so thrilled that it has that type of reach where we're all meeting someone new. And, you know, I'm in a couple categories, and I'll tell you, just being in the category and having people see what I have done is award enough for me. Last year, I know the awards, the first year, a couple people really ran with it. You know, one of the reasons Cat Dad and Supermom was able to launch in 2020 was because of the cover that they did for the award. And that wound up being a big thing because it kind of changed the momentum for that. So while if you don't win the award, it sort of sucks, but it doesn't, because you've still been part of the process. We all got together and we celebrated. The awards themselves, it's what makes people show up, right? That's why they're showing up, to see who wins. But they're also paying attention to everyone who's involved. And I guarantee you that we're sharing audiences by mistake or by design, depending on how you look at it. Don't all ambush me with questions. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Stop. One at a time.
Yeah, I have. I really have no questions. It's just a matter of heading over to the Facebook group. Make sure that you join the group and participate. We're still taking nominations and things like that, and people are dropping in their links of where to find this content that is being nominated. So, you know, there's one for podcasting. There's like Rookie of the Year's one. I mean, just with the art alone is sequential art, cover art. I mean, just so many other subcategories and things that people can qualify for. And
for the record, we were very experimental this year.
Yeah.
With some of the things that we're doing. Because it's an awards where it's all fans, we didn't know how to handle it, and that's made us have to rethink some things, which has been interesting because you have to look at it at a different angle. That different angle is going to make the awards more interesting going forward. Even something like the Hustle Award. Like, how do you talk about crowdfunding hustle? Like, who? And then all of a sudden we put it out there. Okay, who hustled the best for their crowdfunding? And this one person, who's Luke, mentioned all the hustle he had for all the projects. And it's like, wait, should that count? Is that going to count? Are we going to count that? And it's exciting because it was, you guys are looking at it in a different way than we're putting it out there. Just like when we write a comic book and you see something that's not there, but we're like, oh, cool. But this is actually like a forward motion. So when someone says, oh, cool to that, we know we hit something. So we know we hit a thing that people connect with. So You guys are
Well-
helping us make the awards better every time you vote.
And that was the thing that we had discussed was like hustle versus innovation, and they're two completely different things. And so we were like, well, I think that deserves a category because there are people who were out there who got their crowdfunding out there. A couple people that stand out to me, and I need to go over there and nominate them. Basically, it was like they launched their crowdfund, and every time I hit the share button on it, they were right there saying thank you. They were there retweeting it, resharing it, and just engaging like nonstop. And I'm like, dude, do you sleep? I mean, that to me is hustle, and deserves to be recognized. The people who put in the hours to get it done. I mean, it's hard enough putting your campaign together, but then to keep up that motivation for the 30 days or the 60 days of a campaign. Luke, for example, he had an Indiegogo and it extended to 60 days and he was nonstop. And he's not the only one, So if you know people, make sure that you get over there into the group and nominate the people. Show us and show the people who aren't familiar with them what they did. And by default, they're going to grow their network. It's a beautiful thing.
I don't have a question on this awards. I just want to say that like the fact that you guys put this on is like it's very compassionate, like passionate of you guys, and it's like Mr. Sin said, this is a very thankless job that we're in. Like not a lot of people shine on it. Like we do it just because we love it, not for the recognition. But it's nice to be recognized. And I know this like firsthand when you guys like repost my promotional art, that this helps a lot. And you guys are kind enough to do this. But the fact that you put on this award show for all these independent people who might not have an audience that need, this helps them grow. And you guys are just awesome, like supporters of that. You guys are like the supporters of this business. So kudos to you. So
and I want to toss that back to Rob too, because advocating is not easy either, and a lot of that is thankless.
Actually, advocating's easy. Everyone gets that wrong. Advocating's easy. It's the getting rid of the human desire to make it all about yourself. It's the whole reason I don't call myself an indie creator with two eyes. Too many eyes in there. That's why I recreated indie to be INDEE. I made it stand for something. I didn't take something from someone else, didn't understand what it was, claimed it was for me, and I'm not trying to sell you a book. Maybe one day I'll write a book about my journeys, and I'll put in some tidbits. Most of my stuff I give for free when it comes to creating. I have a YouTube channel with over 100 videos. Go out there and see everything you might need to see. If you don't see it, tell me, and I'll make sure we study it and we do it. This industry comes from the shoulders of giants who learn from each other, and it is our job to continue to learn from each other and pass that forward, not to cash in on each other. We make our sales through comic books. We don't tell other people how to live when we're out there doing the wrong thing. We live in the same spot. We all know each other after a while. We all see each other after a while. You can either choose to be someone who helps other people, and that pisses people off. Don't get me wrong. Being an advocate, it upsets other people, and Alex will deal with that one day because he is a supportive person, and someone's going to come and tell you you can't do that. You can't support that person. You can't share that person's stuff, and they want to put rules on you. I've even had people be like, "Hey, listen, I need this done by this weekend," and I try to be a nice human being, but you can ask anyone who's called themselves my boss. I do not do well with orders. I have never been that person who, even my boss has learned to say please and thank you to me over time. The people who could fire me, I would call out and I would have aggression with. Don't treat people who are trying to help you like they're your tools. They're like when Alex says he's trying to share something and maybe he didn't share it the way you wanted to. Hey, Alex, could you do me a big favor? Could you maybe share this link instead of that one? Don't be like, hey, why are you sharing that one? I didn't tell you could share that one. Because when you do that, Alex is just going to remember you. He's a great guy. He's going to continue to advocate. Advocating is not hard. It's doing it. It's constantly doing it and being able to just have an open heart and want to help other people genuinely. And there are some people who call themselves an advocate that all they want is something in exchange for. They want to trade it. Oh, I am on Kickstarter right now, so I'm now the biggest advocate for comics for 30 days. I'm going to talk about everyone else's comics because no one's going to catch on what I'm doing. Oh, my campaign's over. Okay, I'm not going to talk to anyone for a while. Oh, wait, here comes my campaign's in 2 weeks. Here I am. I'm the advocate again. That's the hard part. That's the hard part. Sharing things for people, talking nicely about people who are excited about comics, that's the easy part. The hard part's the constantly doing it even after the abuse that you'll get, because people will treat you poorly, because this is a competitive field. And if someone feels like you're helping their competition, they're going to try to hurt you. Meanwhile, it's not competitive. We're not competing for the same thing. You didn't write the same story. You're not playing the same game. Stop looking at a competition. Stop blaming everyone for your failures. You're not trying hard enough. I had a friend yesterday who wrote, what are the things that are holding you back from reaching a bigger market? I said, and it's true, nothing. It is my job to reach the bigger market. That is all. There's nothing holding us back. There's no one kneecapping you. You're just complaining because it's hard. Yeah, everything worth doing in life is hard. So do you really want?
Yeah, that's the thing. No, sorry. That's the thing about, life. Life is hard. That is the one truth that I live by. Life is hard and it's unfair. That's like the death and taxes. Life is right up there. It's tough all over. But it's not about like managing the tough. It's about perseverance through it. Like standing up to life and like just making it fair. It's like Mr. Terrific of like the Justice Society. Life is unfair, so you got to make it fair. That's up to you. Everyone's got to be Mr. Terrific. They can't just be like, jokers. Like every life is hard. That's the big joke. You got to be like Mr. Terrific. Life is unfair, but I'm gonna make it fair, not just for myself, but for everyone.
So what do y'all like to see from a creator when they do have a Kickstarter going? Like, for instance, when Victor Danridge had his Kickstarter going, one thing that excited me was seeing him get so excited about getting those pledges and everything. I know you said the appreciation and everything. What's the incentive as far as a creator personally for y'all to want to back his Kickstarter or his Indiegogo?
Like for me personally,
yeah.
I think when it comes to backing other people, I've backed a few projects in my day, not a whole lot, but the ones I do back, it's because they have something that in the story or the art that I'm very interested in. One of the few examples is a book that I recently backed, within the last year, was called Impossible Jones, and what I liked about it was that it was a unique thread because you have this character who's actually technically a supervillain, but they're using the disguise of a superhero identity to kind of make a name for themselves, be famous, and kind of do their work without necessarily getting in trouble with the law. And I thought that was a creative spin on being a hero and a villain. And plus the other thing I liked about it was they had these cool, the main character had these very cool transformative powers that were almost like Plastic Man but better. And that really spoke to me because the Plastic Man is one of my favorite characters. I love I think it's underrated. I love the powers of elasticity, and so I had to back the story. And the other thing is the other two these big names. One of the biggest two I've heard you've probably seen this, but the guys who have done the Earthworm Jim comics. I grew up with that cartoon, and just to see this done in comic book format, I've always wanted to do that. So to see him bring it back to life, and that in turn raised awareness for me to their other project, Bigfoot Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, I like Earthworm Jim, so obviously I'm probably going to like this, and I backed it, and I did, So it really appeals to me. There has to be something within the Kickstarter, whether it's the goal or the passion or the story or the art, that really speaks to me and says, I want this. I want to hold this in my hand and just read it,
Yeah, but with Doug TeNapel, especially because he's good. He doesn't really need the money per se, but he enjoys creating and he enjoys entertaining people. So it's a big incentive to support somebody like that. So
it is.
What about you, C? What draws your attention when it comes to a crowdfund? What makes you part with your money?
One, it has to be the story. It definitely has to be the story. So, for instance, if it's a superhero, it's got to be a different take on a superhero. It can't just be, oh, he's going to go out and he's just going to beat people up. There has to be a different take on it. And sometimes it's the creator. Sometimes the creator has such an enthusiasm for the project and such a passion for the project that even though, let's say it is a superhero book that's kind of like, okay, it's your typical superhero fare. I'll back it just because I want to support that creator, because I want to support him going forward, because I like to see that passion in comics. I like to see that passion in creativity. So sometimes it's just the creator that kind of pushes you. It's passion that pushes you into supporting him.
I mean, they don't call it a passion project for nothing, you know.
Right?
See that someone excited about their own project and just wanted to share it with the world. You're just like, okay, I got to get on this. I got to see what big deal is. I got to support this dude, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I want to bat this back to Rob a little bit, because he has a video here. I don't know if it's available really quickly, but the importance of $1. And so as an advocate, as a person who wants to see, just that backer number increase, and, maybe you don't have $10 to throw at every campaign that you want to support, but you have $1 and it just moves the needle a little bit for them. But Rob, what is it that says take my money beyond the $1?
Well, I'll back anyone for $1 as long as it's not going to affect me financially. I try to give, especially my friends. I even apologize if I can't support my friends for more than $1. Sometimes just, this has been, especially this past year we're coming out of, a lot of us limped out, if not crawled like the zombie that's half alive out of 2020. That's how I felt leaving 2020. I'm still trying to regrow my legs. So I'll give anyone $1, but usually, honestly, because, money's different. When you start spending money, you start thinking, well, is this worth my money? And that's what I do. I look at it that way. So sometimes I'll support a creator, but that just goes one time. Like, I won't keep supporting someone. I don't care how passionate they are. If you're putting out bad quality product, then we talked about this on Friday. Everyone's like, oh, it's not a big deal if I put out a comic book without an editor. Yeah, it is, because you're lowering the stock of independent creators. And then I got to work even harder because you put out crap. Because when someone went home and they see crap, they're going to do that. So if you're putting out a bad product book, and I mean bad, not I didn't like the story, because there are stories I didn't like. I've done good reviews on because they hit all the quality markers. We're not going to always like the same things. Everyone talks about certain movies. I'll see it and be like, blah, so we all have taste and likes. So it's really, when it comes to real money, it comes to more so the story. Because if I'm going to buy it and own it, and it does also, there's the PDF versus physical. I'll try anything in a PDF form. I won't just try anything in physical. I have a lot of bad books in my collection. I have a lot of bad books that I hold probably just because I'm a nice guy. Like, these are not worth keeping. I should actually give them to Jax to be a coloring book. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being honest. That would upgrade it, having my child draw on it. They're just real. And Meredith has seen me talk about stories and how important it is, all the aspects of it. It's not a fucking storyboard. You have all these people who come in here trying to make storyboard comics and wondering why their comics suck. It's because you're making a storyboard comic. There's no such fucking thing. For the record, went through the history. Comics came before storyboards. As a matter of fact, guess what inspired people to use storyboards? Comics. So let's not confuse the two. If you think that comics are storyboards, please leave. Just right away, quickly, from our industry. You can be a fan from the outside. You're not welcome anymore. They are not the same. They are not the same. They are different aspects. And I've talked to people about this in great length. So that's what I'm looking for. Honestly, when it boils down to a quality product that I'd want to own in physical, a PDF is, let me take a chance on this person. And a lot of times, like what C had said, okay, this person's passionate. Let me see what they can do with that passion. Let me see it. I'll try to read it. But I have a reservoir full of PDFs that I never read because I have everyone giving me their PDFs that I need immediate attention. It's funny. I spend money on things I don't actually read. And eventually they'll give it to me for free, and I'll be like, I had this. I actually bought this, and then now they're giving it to me for free. Well, I already had it. Now I have to read it to review it for you. And I've talked to Meredith about this. The reason I don't do reviews is I find so many mistakes in books. And I will not blow someone up. I will not read their book and publicly rip them apart. We tried it one time, and Meredith knows I didn't like it. I felt horrible about it because there's a different cap. When you ask me to read a book and then review it, I have to worry about what everyone who's tuning in is going to think of me if I don't tell them the truth. Because if they go home with the book and they go, Rob sucks, That's me. I take the ding too. But if I'm honest, I take the ding on the other side because suddenly I'm the guy who has to rip people down to get ahead. So I find it's easier 90% of the time not to do reviews. But I don't like something. I'll read anything for anyone behind the scenes, and I've given it back. And people have been a little nervous about sending it to me a second time because I see the things that most people don't want to talk about. But that's important. And if I'm telling you something and you turn around and tell me, oh, you don't understand, it's this, that. Like I had a person tell me it prints better. They had the balloon to a person going to the wrong place, and they thought putting it on fucking paper was going to solve the problem of the tail being in the wrong place. That's not going to solve shit. You might as well just say fuck you. Saying fuck you to me would have been nicer. That would have been actually nicer than telling me it was going to print better. You don't tell me, don't bullshit me. Just be like, dude, look. My bad. I should try to fix that. Let me see if I can.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's
tell us how you really feel, Rob.
But there is,
Don't hold back.
But I still support crowdfunding. That's the thing, because every so often I get a Philippe Cagno's book, beautiful books. I get the cool book we just got from. I have it right here, I think, or Jax has it somewhere. I'm drawing a blank on his name, and he's a friend. I feel horrible right now. Here we go. John Celestri. John Celestri.
Yeah.
So that was a great book, and I didn't back it on Indiegogo, by the way, for everyone who's listening, because I don't trust Indiegogo. Just as an FYI, I waited till he went to Kickstarter, and I backed it via Kickstarter because I don't trust Indiegogo. Because every time I back Indiegogo, I get a fraudulent warning. That makes me nervous when I'm using a site that always seems to come up as a fraudulent warning on my app from my bank. So I waited till he came over to Kickstarter. I will go to Indiegogo occasionally for the right person. I will. That's how I know I get the fraud warnings. That's how I have to call up my bank and reset everything. Would you like to pick a new password today, Mr. Henderson? That's the day I have for about 20 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of great stuff. You get creators who are up and coming. Like you get to watch, and this is a beautiful thing we haven't talked about that I love. You get the creator's first book, and then you get their 10th book, and you watch them grow. Yep. You have followed them on that journey. It feels like you're part of it. And when you're talking to them, because I talk to a lot of the creators I back, I'm like, I'm really proud of you. You really went from point A to point Z, and you did a beautiful job in that journey. I was like, but what are you going to do next? Because to me, it's always, what are you going to do next? This industry doesn't suffer fools. You can't rest on your laurels. It's always the next issue that's coming out or going to a new platform to distribute. What's your plan for tomorrow? And if you don't have a plan for tomorrow, today is going to forget you. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice? Today's going to forget you. I like that one.
No, I want to put something out there. It might seem a little bit off topic, okay? But so recently we've had a little bit of fun with trying to outdo each other, finding the worst movie ever. Okay, so it's kind of in the realm of entertainment and stuff like that. And some people, they've built up their reputation based on how bad it is. It's like that cult following where it's like, oh, he can't outdo himself here. Do you find that people do that in comic books as well? Because let me tell you, we saw this one movie, 5 stars across the board because of how terrible it was. And you just read through the comments, and that's an entertainment in and of itself.
Neil Breen is an American treasure. I'm just saying, it's an American treasure.
How does that relate to comics? Do we see that? Do they have longevity when it comes to stuff like that because of maybe a cult following?
No one talks about bad comics other than to bitch about them quickly. Everyone's got the one comic that's horrible. I'll tell you this. Creators are like little girls at the lunch table. When they're by themselves, the jokes that go on, the things that they talk about, the way that they would treat each other's comics and using them for the bathroom. I heard many jokes made about, oh, luckily I had his comic when the toilet paper ran out. I could use that. That's private talking going on. But publicly, no one does that because the one thing in this industry that we know is that everyone worked hard to get there. The only people that you'll see really attacked publicly are Marvel and DC, and that's that's because they are the what is it? They're the level, the goal,
well,
what you want to call it,
I think
the watermark.
Yeah, I was going to say that's human nature. It's like it's king of the mountain. You know, somebody's
Yeah.
at the top, somebody's going to climb up and try and knock you down.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
man, no.
Go ahead, Alex.
What?
Go
you were
ahead.
gonna say something.
I was just gonna say like the man, the myth, the mountain. And like actually, kind of like I don't mean to like really oust it, but I think when we talk like bad comics or something, I think like one person that really comes to mind is I don't want to like bash him, but I think like Rob Liefeld. You know, I think like that's kind of like a guy who's got like a cult following. You know, like it's like, but I'm not sure if he exactly fits into like what we're talking about. But he just immediately comes to mind. You know, like he's about some bad stuff before. He's very controversial in this game, and just like when you guys were talking about this, that just like really came to mind. That's just right up there.
I tell you who I do not like. I don't like his art, but the story was good, and that's what the story actually kept me, believe it or not, is Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire did Sweet Tooth. He's done a lot of Marvel stuff, Extraordinary X-Men, so on and so forth. But his art to me looks well. I'm not a fan of his art, but the story was able to keep it going, and he's able to continue to put out books with that type of artwork that is not conventional. I'll put it that way, for an adult. But he even though his story seemed to touch people and everything. So, but there is one guy that I know of, and I cannot remember his name. His first name is Chris. It's bad art, but he leans into it with the jokes and his stuff, and he has a cult following. But it's like not a comic. It's a comic, but not almost like a comic strip, kind of like Family Circus or what have you. And it's horrible. It's horribly drawn, and I think he knows it. But again, the writing kind of carries that. That's why he gets that kind of a following. So
I think that's that right there shows the importance of good writing. You know, good writing. Maybe you can forgive the art a little bit.
Right.
You know,
I just want to quickly say, because I know Rob Liefeld becomes the punching bag for the industry. And that is because he sometimes says things that are controversial. But no one has done as much for independent creators as Rob Liefeld has. He is one of the forefathers of Image. He fought for creative rights. He changed it. Him with all the people, of course, who created Image, who walked away from high-paying jobs because they didn't like how it was and wanted to change it. Neil Adams, of course, was a very big champion of it. They were throwing away original art at Marvel before Neil Adams stepped up and said something about it. Remember that. Throwing away, handing it to tourists. Oh, came to Marvel today. Here, 10 years ago, someone drew this. Have some art. So we need to watch how we slander or attack. And not saying Alex did it, because he's right. There's controversy around Rob Liefeld. But I think it's a Marvel thing, DC thing, where they think that they can. And you want to walk away from that idea that you're allowed to. Be respectful in this industry. Don't run your mouth. And I've seen Rob Liefeld pop up in a thread and rip apart a creator. And there was rightfully so, because there's this comfortableness of, saying it, you don't expect them to pop up. And then when they pop up, and I know this from experience, when they pop up, people pee themselves and go, I didn't mean that. No, that's not how I meant it. So I had someone literally tell me, and I see you, Meredith, and then, because I want to finish the Rob Liefeld thing, I had someone say, Rob, what has Rob Liefeld done lately? And I'm like, are you serious? And then I dropped like 10 links of all the things he's done in the last 12 months. And I'm like, just because you're not paying attention doesn't mean he's still not changing the industry. And he's like, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean it. And I was like, yeah, stop thinking you can attack people. So just for everyone, if you hear something bad about someone, keep it to yourself. Because in the end, you never know who's watching. And you don't know who you just upset. I have not publicly gone after many people, and there's a reason I don't do that, and I do vague shit. It's better for everyone involved not to stir controversy. Go ahead, Meredith, play your bump.
all right, we'll be right back after this.
This is the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also catch us on the HWWS Web TV YouTube channel. Subscribe today and become part of the legend.
As in Christian on the show, Meredith. going to be a whole day thing now. Every bump, there it is.
Rob, man, we're going to have words after this.
Well, actually, we could get Christian. Christian would come on, actually.
He absolutely would.
Come on in a second. Like, he has no problem about that. I thought it was funny after the last one. I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. So we're in our second hour now. All the links, by the way, for Alex's stuff is in our thread. That's over on comicbookadvocates.com, so you can see all of Alex's great work. He gave me a whole bunch of links. Don't worry, Alex, I didn't put the PDF you sent me. Because don't worry, I didn't give that out for free. Alex is like, oh, because I've seen that done. I had press releases sent to me where they were putting in PDFs and they didn't say there were PDFs at the bottom. They just said looking for reviewers, and they had all this stuff. And it didn't say like PDF copy. It was just the name of the book, and apparently it was a link. And I was like, you can't do that. You have to tell people, reviewer copies. Don't ever send an email like that. Because if you're sharing it, because we can share emails now, you're giving away books for free. Don't do that, kids.
Well, technically, the issue 0 was kind of like our way to introduce people into Xenar with this story. So technically,
I'll go give it away.
It's like it's a free preview, so to speak, of what's to come.
Okay, fair enough.
I appreciate you doing that. Thinking of that. And I appreciate you guys really helping me share my promotional art for Xenar, all the stuff that we've had by all these different artists. It's really nice. I don't know a lot of people who do that. You guys are really great supporters. You guys rock.
Thank you. All right, Meredith. Did you want to have do you have another topic in mind, or do you want to go back to the pre-assigned things I had?
I want to go back to the pre-assigned things that you had, and maybe whatever highlights, what popped in the news that caught our attention.
We were talking about that. Remember that library kid?
Yes.
And how the importance of kids and comics in kids' hand, and we all agreed that was a pretty big moment this week. And we even had a little bit of controversy trying to figure out who's in the picture. Live during our show, we were like, "Who's that in the picture?" We got all confused. But
it's just that they said McLean. The guy that pictures McKenna. I was confused. That's all I can say.
And it got worse as we tried to unravel it for a few minutes until we finally got it back home. It was not our finest hour. But here it is. Here's the picture that caused some controversy. But it's so awesome. Local libraries talking about, no, I cannot get away from that damn thing. Look, even when we're not talking about it, it pops up in our stream now. Damn you, C19. Damn you to hell. So, no, this kid's awesome. He's out there trying to tell people about comic books. How cool is that? I have a friend who actually works in a library. I should reach out to him. And he's in charge of the graphic novels, too. We're hearing this. It's creeping up. And, of course, I do comics in kids' hands during the convention season. We'll be having panels, and I might even have Meredith is going to find out something live on air here. I love doing this. It's like my best part of my day when I do stuff like this. So comics in kids' hands is a panel I do, and Tampa Bay has actually asked if I want to do the panel again. I might be in Raleigh at this time, so I'm going to have someone in the room to talk about comics in kids' hands and have me up on a phone. Guess who's going to get the honors of being the person who runs the moderation?
I have a feeling I've just been voluntold, folks. Voluntold.
I don't like voluntold. This is something to help terraform. This is your responsibility.
See what he did there. See what he did there, folks. This is what I deal with.
I made it more pressure, but no, seriously, comics in kids' hands. We started it. We're really excited about it, and then, unfortunately, this is meant to be a panel series. It's very hard to do panels from your home. I've done a lot of them, but it's not the same thing. We wanted to go out there because we want parents to show up who are like, well, why would comics be good? Because online, let's be honest, I'm only finding people who agree with me. You're not going to find people who disagree with you online too much, because the minute you disagree, they run away with their hands over their ears, unwilling to learn anything new. That's online. But in person, people are actually willing to listen to more things. Wouldn't you guys agree? Not all at once.
So,
for the most part, because they can't get away from you as easy as just turning off the computer.
Well, also, when you're a little bigger, it helps because they won't disagree with you.
But
I was going to say you have a captive audience in a way.
Well, you have a better inflection in your voice than you do on anything you could text or
no, but even live videos, you're only going to get people who are really interested. But when you go to a convention, sometimes people just want to sit down, or they go, okay, I'll give it 5 minutes and I can walk away, because they're there anyway. And sometimes they need a break, and panel rooms are a break. I can't tell you many people who said, I wandered into your panel room just to sit and take a break in a quiet room. And I'm amazed at what you're doing. I never thought of comics that way. That's so amazing. Thank you for putting on this panel. So you can't discount that human interaction, you know? And it helps when you go, hey, you sit back down. Panel's not over yet. You can't do that.
I've seen that happen, and it's so funny, you know, and only the brave keep walking.
Started running out the panel room.
I
told look good on the outside.
I have a really quick funny story. So Jax is running around, right? And he always runs around the panels when we go to panels. It's either that or he tries to talk on the mic. So he's running around this panel room, and he was about to run out of the door, and I was like, Jax, sit down. And two people who were standing just suddenly sat down, and they're looking around, because I must have barked at him a little louder than I expected, because he was going to run out the door. And I was in the middle of a comment, so I'm the one with the mic. So I took the mic away and yelled at him this way and went right back to it, because at that point, everyone was used to Jax being in the room. It was funny. These two people sat down, and everyone turned and looked at them and laughed, and they would not leave. They stayed till the end at that point. I think they were trying to hide the urine stains, because they went right back down. Oh, shit. Fuck, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Even Jackson go over him and laughed. Jackson's like, ha, welcome to my world.
That is awesome. Everyone has like a very good Comic-Con story. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I miss him. I miss him to death. And, of course, we're starting to see him come back alive. I think our friend Hudson's in Miami. One of our founders is over in Miami, and I wish I had known. I have some car issues that I'm still trying to deal with. I would have tried to get Meredith to come down and meet Hudson if we'd known. But yeah, there's shows showing up. I'm very excited about it. Florida's had some shows. We're gonna continue to have shows, so we're almost back there. But in the meantime, if you're a parent who happened onto this show because you got lost and want to know something, comics can empower your kids to really learn. It helped rise my reading scores literally in a 1 year time, where I was below the average for, I think I was in 6th grade at the time. And by the time I took the test, I had gone to college level things, to the point where there was such a gap. They actually debated making me retake this test. They were like, but how could he have cheated? They thought maybe they switched the things around, and they just given me an IQ test, and I was already dyslexic, and it turned out I had a high enough IQ to be in Mensa. So they wrote it off as maybe he just, because my dad said he's been into comics and reading comics, and I learned to read with a dictionary and a comic book, one word at a time. So they were like, maybe he's just that motivated right now, and he has the intelligence level. The next year, when I scored even higher, they were all like, okay, yeah, comics. You know, like that was it. That was the moment. They were like, yeah, that had to have been. All my scores shot up. Everything got easier. The only thing that didn't was math, because, you know, math teachers show the work. I'm sorry you're stupid and you need paper. I can do it in my head in 2 seconds. Just saying. I'm just saying. I even, real thing here, I invented a math formula. And because I was an angry 16-year-old kid, I threw it away and never submitted it. But it was a math formula that cut out like 10 steps in a math equation. They didn't understand how I could have even looked at it that way, let alone it working. And I put it on the reason I threw it out is I put it on one of their tests. This is the bullshit in school. I scored 97 on the test out of 100. And I got the first person who graded it gave me that because all the answers were right. And she was used to my math notes. But in New York, they have someone audit it. The auditors say goes over anyone else's. He failed me on the test because he didn't understand the work I showed. And it wasn't their way. So in school, you have to be a sheep. You can tell that was the last time I ever went to a math class in my life. I never went back to another math class until college. And in college, the same problem happened because he couldn't do what I could do in my head.
It's like that scene in Incredible 2. It's like, why would they change math? Math is math.
Yeah, because they're always trying to make it easier for themselves, but they don't. They overcomplicate it. It's like when you ask a dumb person to fix a tire and suddenly you have a box on your car where the tire used to be. That's the math system right now. We have calculators, guys. Give it up. You're not that important anymore. We have something that replaces you. You don't see anyone teaching horse classes anymore, do you? No, you don't. Let's have calculator classes.
At this time, teachers, I'd like to remind you that the opinions expressed
No,
here on
not
this program,
just math teachers in high school. Just
math teachers who might be looking right now. We'd like to express the opinions that you are hearing on this program.
Math
Does not necessarily reflect.
They don't watch comic things. That has words. Math teachers are against words. I am
Let me
getting
tell you,
so many emails.
I'm going to tell you this. What I found out a lot about math teachers in either field it goes to, not college now, talking about high school, elementary school, middle school, they get kind of thrusted into it. They don't like math teachers either. A lot of them. I remember one guy I knew when I was in school, he was a math teacher because they just needed a math teacher. He had to keep the book with him the entire time just to know how to do the math problems. So give the math teachers a little bit of a break.
No, I had a parent-teacher conference, and my mom, being my mom, didn't show up because she was drunk. And just, look, she passed away. I don't want to get into it. That's just part of the story. So she was drunk and couldn't show up to parent-teacher conference, so I decided it'd be fun to go without her. Yeah, I did that. I went without her, and I might have been drunk. So I showed up to the math teacher thing, and I was like, I want you to explain to me, since I'm my own parent, because I'm the only one in charge. And I'm still surprised no one called. That's how little they care about you in high school. When you could show up drunk to your own parent-teacher conference, no one sends anyone to check at you at home. And I was like, I want you to explain to me why I'm smarter than you, and that's a problem. Something about security, and I just left. I was like, look, if you're going to be combative, we just can't. We're never going to get this solved, okay? You're just being combative. I was not a good kid. I was not a good kid, ladies and gentlemen. But I was a fun kid if you weren't my teacher.
Yeah, I was never a math student at all. So
now, what else was in the news?
Well, we got comments. I just realized I hadn't. I was like, we're not getting any comments this morning. And I was like, oh yeah.
Did they just pop in here?
I've seen John's on there.
I was on private, even though I told it not to be private. StreamYard's apparently got that problem for Facebook. Facebook doesn't like StreamYard, so every so often they do something where all of our videos go back to private even after we reset it. And I forgot to reset it that third time at 10 minutes. So we're going to run through some comments real quick. Trish says, hello, guys, on break. Just stopping in. How you doing? Hello, Mike. So quick question while on break. Oh, no, we missed this one. I'm sorry. But, Mike, if you're still watching, tell Trish we did get to it. It was just a Facebook thing. So quick question while on break. Writing a script and did it on paper first, then went to put it on the computer and the feel was different. Does that happen to you? You know what it is? And I'll be honest with you. When you're transcribing something, and I'll leave this around the room, you start going into editor mode. But at that point, you're not ready to be in editor mode. So you start to change it and you lose the vibe for it. That's why I don't write on paper anymore. I used to write everything on paper. Every story I did used to, because I hated typing. So my dyslexia, my fingers just do this. And I have to every so often go like that to get my fingers away from each other because they cross on the keyboards. So the idea for me to start in any format being digital helped get rid of that transfer problem, because there is a gear. As a writer, you have the creative side of your mind, you have the analytical side of your mind, and you can't have the two live at the same point, at least for me. Like I said, we'll go around the room on this because I need a new soda anyway. But for me, I actually I'm not able to do the same things at the same time. So if I'm transferring over work, I get frustrated because I start editing it and I don't feel that connection to the story, because I went in and it took me a long time to realize it was the editor cap, and I have to be able to know when I have my writer cap on or my editor cap. And even when I'm in the middle of editing, I will stop if there's a bad word, take off the editor cap, put back on the writer cap, and be like, fix this. And I've trained my mind to be able to go into that other side of the brain to be able to go back to creation. And it took me, like I said, remember I said it's easy to say, but there's a lot behind it. That's part of it. So it wasn't the inspiration, it was the technical stuff. The behind the scenes stuff is always the most daunting. But go ahead. I'll pass it around the room. Who wants first licks?
I guess if you don't mind, I'll go first. So it's kind of funny. Like I started out like this is a big thing with my editor Webb. Like he's helped me become a better writer. You know, like when I first started out writing, I was coming up with ideas, and at the time I just wrote down whatever was coming to my head. It didn't occur to me that stuff could not make sense. It could not work. And like as years went by, I started learning down. And like when I'm like starting a story, as I write it, I have the idea in my head, but that transition to get it down onto like the computer isn't as smooth because like I'm thinking, okay, wait, does this actually work, or does this can this be what I want it to be, even though like it doesn't work? And it's that transition. It never goes the way you want it to. That's what I've learned. So it's like I think when you become a writer, you also learn to become an editor, and I feel that like there's a balance between the two that happens as you're writing. You kind of get the story out, but it's never going to go out the way you initially had planned. And I can say that this went for Zener. It's gone for my other comics too. It's all for my ideas. It's like it's a balance of being an editor and a writer, and like it never goes out the way you want it to. And I've learned that, but I've come to accept that, because it's helped me become a better writer and a better creator.
Okay. I used to write on paper, but the problem with paper is that I can't keep up with my thoughts. So I end up having to actually type. I'm better at typing on typing out something. If I'm writing something, it's the first draft. The only thing I'm worried about as far as the first draft, besides getting some plot points is concerned, is getting that emotion out there, getting that atmosphere out there of what I'm trying to get, what I'm trying to achieve. As long as I could get that first draft out there, and the best way to do that is to type it up, because when you're in the moment, I'm just going faster than I could get hand cramp, that kind of thing. So like if I'm writing something, I just get the first draft out, get it done. I think Neil Gaiman had made the statement before was write out your first draft, and then when you write your second one, write like you knew where it was going. So that's what I would do. I normally do when I'm writing. So
for me personally, because I started off in prose. I still write in prose, but having worked on a couple of scripts now, it's not that I write in long form. I don't. Sticky notes. I use these for bullet points. I have notebooks and stuff like that for bullet points. And then I expand on it when I have the time to sit down and write those ideas out and expand on those. So it's really one of those things where I do a little bit of both, but the sticky notes are more for the outline, the bullet points, the things that I don't want to forget, because I have to write it down. And as well as I do, you go out and you're driving along or something like that, and all of a sudden you have this great idea, and then you're like, I'm going to remember it. And then all of a sudden it's like squirrel, and it's like, what the heck was that? It was brilliant, and I lost it. And I have pulled over before to write down those bullet points so that I don't forget, then go home and try and expand on it if I have the time.
Yeah, squirrels trip me up too.
Yeah, and then there are times where it's like, this note does not make sense. I'm like, what the hell was I on? So that happens. One of the other things that I have found also, and maybe a little bit off topic, and I'll pass it back to Rob, is having the prose version, having scripted it out, and now I'm lettering that story. That editing process is coming into play, where now I have art and panels and things like that, and going, okay, my original script doesn't work there. And I like having that creative control on the back end as well. But lettering is freaking hard. And I'm finding that I'm doing a lot more editing there as well.
It's actually why I like lettering. I like lettering because I get the final edit. The letterer gets, even when I do a lettering script, even if I'm not lettering it myself, I will go panel by panel, look at the thing, and decide how I would letter it in my head. And then I make the changes. I'm actually had to make a lettering script. I'm behind on it because my son was home this weekend, and I didn't expect that. So, I dealt with Jaxie stuff, and I had a whole bunch of stuff planned out for it. But you're right. The lettering becomes this last licks of being able to really create this story and really drive it home. That's why it's always an editing process. You're editing until the minute you send it to the printer, and then you're worrying what you missed. That is the honest truth. You are terrified you missed something. So, yeah, and you're always going to find something. I mean, Marvel and DC find something. The goal is to not make it So it's all over the place. People will forgive a mistake or two. They won't forgive a book that has constant mistakes. I've seen books that literally had pages printed in the wrong place, and they wanted to charge you for it. I walked away from the table at that point. I was like, I'll see you the next time you have a proper book. You know, because I know the printer probably screwed up. It's probably not their fault, but they should be giving that book away for free then.
Yeah,
or for dirt cheap, for like $1. Don't try to sell me a screw up. I don't care whose screw up it was. It's a screw up. That's not what you sell me. You have a misspelling in a book. Okay, that happens. I'll tell you the truth. As someone who's dyslexic, I put in a word, it auto-corrects it, and my mind, due to the dyslexia, doesn't realize it picked the wrong word. Because there's just too many words in between. I'm like, okay, I guess that's it. Like, my mind's like, sure, looks good. You say it's spelt right, we're fine. And I walk away, and then all of a sudden someone goes, hey, did you mean through, not thorough? And I was like, there's a difference? I was like, oh, do tell me. I mean, I'm still learning about M dashes and just loving it. Loving every second of M dashes. Hey, everyone, Marv. I am stalking you. Huh? Happens. Your kink is not my kink, but as long as you're having fun. Upgraded firestorm ability that could change any matter, alter a person's body to heal or make it better, or change lead to golf if needed.
Lead to gold.
Lead to gold.
Gold. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know why
needed.
golf got in my head. Dyslexia, you know, it's a bitch.
So I guess that was Mike's superpowers.
Superhero thing. Yeah, it was definitely. That's why I was like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Stories can be simple or complex, but you need to plan to satisfy readers. Something for you, and you have the people now who are like, art is more important. I don't understand why they put balloons up with all these words. Because if there weren't words, you wouldn't have an MCU right now. John Celestri says, recipe consists of basically the equivalent to salt, fat, and sugar in particular amounts that satisfy certain types of readers. Going back to our readers' comments a little earlier,
yep.
I love being able to cast multiple votes, so I do not have to pick my own favorite. That is something part of our awards. You as fans get to choose everyone you want to win. It's up to everyone else to decide who the ultimate winner is. Please, thank you, and sorry are easy to use if a person cares. Yep, absolutely. You know, sadly, it's also used by people who don't care sometimes, and they just say it and expect that blanket forgiveness. It's what the person does next that tells you how genuine those words were. Trish gets excited to see creators getting excited. She's working now. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like seeing an excited creator. I'll back a person because of their excitement. When I see people do a video like this, and you've both seen my back applause. If you do this like this, you won't even get $1. If your video is like, hey, I'm like the best there's ever been, and I made this book, and you're gonna love it. It's gonna be fantastic, the best thing ever. You know, I'm not backing Trump on Kickstarter. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just not back. Don't act like Trump. Don't tell me how great it is. That's not your job. It's my job to tell you how good it is. It's your job to sell me on the story. Don't forget that, creators. Telling everyone how great your book is screws you up. Telling me it's different, telling me it's unique, those are words I'm interested in. But telling me how great it is, look, I don't care what your mom said about your book. It's what I think about the book that matters to me, and that's the ultimate truth. Have got up and reached the computer. Jigger now. Jigger
now.
And I like Rob Liefeld. I knocked him down by accident, and he was super cool about it. Yeah, I mean, I've met the dude. He's bad. Let me tell you, I sat through an entire interview. I've recorded it, and I asked him for permission for it, and he spent time talking to me. He asked to review it, and he didn't actually review the thing, and it got lost in translation. I saw him the next time, and he asked me, "Did you ever post that video?" And I told him about it, and it's still password protected to this date. And he's like, "Oh, they never told me." He's like, "I'm so sorry." And it's an old interview now, so I would never put it back up. But he remembered that I did the interview. So I like him. He's a good dude. Always been nice to me. And I don't agree with him. I think he says things that I disagree with. But we all say things we disagree with. Doesn't make him a bad man.
Right.
Go ahead, Lanning. You were going to say something. I could see it.
Well, the thing about it, when I was coming up at the time, Rob Liefeld was a huge success. And like Alex's point, I was never a Rob Liefeld fan. As far as his artwork was concerned, I don't say he's particularly as horrible as people make him out to be. But if he is that bad, and the fact that he made a career out of it, that deserves some respect too, and that angle. But I was never a huge fan of Rob. But I do like Rob, as a personality, as himself. So I get kind of, when I do see people, they just want to tear somebody down like that. That's just, I know Rob Liefeld's not that bad of a person.
I'm not here to be anyone else. I'm just here to be me. That means I don't have to rip anyone down because of who I am.
I wasn't even a big Jim Lee fan either. So
I loved his run on X-Men. I have nothing to say bad about that man. He did an amazing job on X-Men. Mike James goes on to say, I have met so many creators and movie stars and TV stars and rock stars, and Rob would be high on the list. That's so cool. Someone, I don't know the name here, said, yes, I've done that, tried and picked an interesting panel to sit on. So going back to me saying that sometimes people just sit to take breaks. I went to an alternative high school. So did I for like 2 days. And then I decided I was not going through all that nonsense and just dropped out. True story. And the math teacher is awesome and still my friend on Facebook. And I am kind of aged.
I think that's what he means. Yeah.
Okay. I had great teachers. Don't get me wrong. I did have great teachers. I respect the hell out of teachers. This year, I hope that we don't have another lockdown because I'd have to become a teacher again. Don't make me go through that. Jackson's so mean to me. He throws things when I'm teaching him. Who's raising that kid? Mike James says, I'm still here. And Marvy says, I'm still here just lettering my comics. Yep, he's dealing with that. And question, tips on how to get an editor? Ooh, that's a really good question. So I know how I did it. I'll go last though because I'm couth. Couth is bad. No, wait. I don't know. I'm something good. And I'll pass it to everyone else. Meredith, we'll start with you. Actually, we'll start with Alex. He's the guest. So how'd you find your editor?
Well, this is actually pretty funny. We met on DeviantArt, and the way we met is that we were both fans of the Marvel comic Runaways. It's kind of a comic that got us into comics. And his icon was one of the characters, and we just started hitting up. We started getting into each other's characters, and then he starts paying more attention to mine. And really, he was pointing out mistakes that I made. And at the time, I was young; I wasn't ready to hear them. Over time, I slowly got to understand it more and really take to what he said. And it's just like it's kind of like he just became. I just wanted him to be my editor because he was really good at challenging me. He was good at making me better, calling me out of my mistakes, essentially grinding my ass to just to make me better. And it's become better that. And that's just kind of how you find it. You find someone who enjoys your work, but they're not afraid to really call you out on when you're doing something wrong, and really just they have your best interest in mind because they want you to succeed. That's why they call you out on this, because they just want your stuff to be good. And that's how you find an editor. And that's what you should find an editor, someone who enjoys your work and wants to be a part of it, wants to help it succeed, but also is going to grind your ass on every single minor detail that you overlook, because that will make you become a better writer, better creator, better artist, better whatever, and that's what you really need with that.
See?
Oh, I'd just find a comic book company and let them do the work.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, there you go.
For me personally, okay, so this is probably a cardinal sin, but I have edited my own work. I've been writing for a long time, and unfortunately, I do make mistakes. I don't catch it, and it's almost like the doctor who's not supposed to operate on their family members because they're a little too close. With prose, a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll write the story hard and fast, and it's ugly, and I let it sit, so that when I come back to it, there's that, somewhat of some distance where I can try and look at it objectively. When it comes to the comic books, what I've been finding is that I kind of do the same thing at a faster pace. And a lot of that is just because I don't have the budget to hire an outside editor. So I'm really trying to do that myself and cull the costs of it. So then that's when I rely on really good, trusted friends, where, again, with the lettering process that Nita, for example, has been instrumental in this one page that I was struggling with. Is she going to get editing credit Probably not, but I'm definitely going to put her on a thank you page because it's that insight. It's like what works, what doesn't, and just putting in the hours in there and going, I know that there's something, and she's like, yeah, it might be this, and working on that. So for me, again, probably cardinal sin. I'm going to ask Rob how he feels about that when it comes to editing your own work. I mean, because with dyslexia, I know that you need that. For me, in a way, it's almost like I think there's a certain amount of arrogance, and I hate admitting that, but it's true. Rob?
I don't think I have any arrogance about editing because I realize how important it is. And yeah, I could use Grammarly. I've actually gotten really good to the point where Chuck, who edits a lot of my work, and we work really well together because, like Meredith mentioned, I have dyslexia and I also have dysgraphia, which means that I can read something 10 times and tell you it says what I think it says and miss the fact that a word like that is not where it's supposed to be. It's completely gone, but my mind has filled in the blank and told me that it's there. So for me, it's a necessity, but for everyone, it's a necessity. It's another set of eyes. How do I find them? It's really simple. I just ask out loud, who's an editor? I've gotten to that point in my career where I can go on Facebook at any given time and say, hey, is anyone an editor? And I'll get 35 inboxes and 10 messages to me. I'm an editor. Or what are you looking for? And all that. It's not how do you find an editor. It's how you find the right editor. That's the difficult part. It's finding someone that you can work with who gets it. I have people all the time who try to fix up my my dialogue, and I have a lot of problems with editors, and I've worked with a few editors where they're like, that's not how, it's not proper, it's not grammatically, whatever, it's not the proper way it's supposed to be written. I'm like, but we don't talk properly. I was like, that's not how they would sound. You want me to change things to make it stereo instructions? I'm not going to do that. This is how that character would speak, and I'm capturing it. And I've gone back and forth, and I've been a part of projects where I've gotten to the point of ready to leave a project because they wanted me to change the way a character sounded. And I won't bet, and I'll tell people, say it out loud. And I've worked with editors, and they've said it out loud, and I've got the message back. Okay, fine, I get it, I see it. Because sometimes when you're reading it, your mind, you have to hear it out loud to understand the context of the wording. So it's hard. It's hard to find the right editor, and there's no magic there. It's working with different editors, finding your style. Like I'm a story editor. You can bring me a story, and I can tell you how to make it better. Did you want to say something, Michael?
Yeah. Well, what is it? What about when it comes to beta readers? Do you use beta readers?
I use beta readers, but not to tell me about mistakes. I want to poll. I want to know how people react.
Right.
So beta readers for me are emotional attachments. Like I'll give out a script to people if I'm on the fence. Perfect example. I'd written a story, and it's now actually a pretty well-known story. But when I first wrote it, I passed it out to a bunch of friends, and I have friends who will read things for me. And then they got back to me and they said, Rob, oh, that was cool. Good job. I like it. I knew I'd written a horrible script. No one had asked me follow-up questions. No one had shown any real passion. They were being nice. I had written a script that was passable, but I don't put out passable work. My goal is never to have something passable. I like to create something that people remember. And I'm lucky enough that I've been able to do that over and over again where people remember what they've read. And they'll talk about it. I'll be on a show with someone and they'll be like, I read that book and that was really blah, blah, that was really cool because of blah, blah, blah. And this, and that. And I'm blown away. Mike's done an amazing job even talking about the things I've written. So to answer your question, when it comes to that, beta readers are super important, but not part of the editing process, if that makes sense. They are part of the quality process, and if they're not coming back to you with words that were like, they should be asking you questions. When's the sequel? What happens next? Those are the words you're looking for. If they're telling you it's just good, it means your book is passable and you need to go back to editing. You have something, but you need to work on it. And if you have really good friends or an older sister or an older brother, give it to them. They'll tell you everything that's wrong with it right away for free. And in like 20 minutes, faster than anyone else, they'll come to blow your world up. Mike says, I have found that there's a lot of editors. Look for one that will improve you. Exactly. Push you to be better. Exactly. But can always work with you. Just my thought. And that's Chuck. To credit to Chuck Pinot. And there was another editor. She's no longer editing, so I'm not going to throw her name out there, but she did an amazing job in my career as well. And she worked with me, and she loved that. because I fight at my editors. I do. I fight back, and it's not ego. It's for the best story. And I always say, just prove me wrong. Show me why I'm wrong. And
been there, done that.
yeah, and when they hear that, and I told an editor, I was like, I want the best story for every person who reads this book. Tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll agree with you, and we'll change everything that I have to. And I think once an editor, because you also have to have that relationship with the editor, it's super important. They have to know that you're not there just to fight them, just to tell them why they're wrong. Because I think Meredith, ego goes on the editor's side too. I think sometimes an editor comes in and they look at your work clinically and forget that it's more than just words. It's passion. It's and they might not understand something. I've had an editor go, "Why would you mention this?" I was like, "Because that character's in the sequel." He's like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, that's a character in the sequel." So you didn't tell me. I was like, "Until this moment, you didn't need to know. I haven't written the sequel yet. I just know that character's going to be in the sequel." And he's like, "Damn, you start here." And I'm like, "Yep." I make sneezes sound a certain way, and there's a reason for it 2 issues later. And then Facebook would go, "Oh, look, he heard his ears. His ears were ringing." I could talk about tips on it on getting editor. If you want to pop in, you're more than welcome.
Well, the other thing that I want to see on a future Sunday Comics Brunch is you two going at it live with, taking a page or two and editing and seeing what that process is. For those of us who, again, because I kind of edit my own things, and perhaps that is the cardinal sin. And, again, a lot of that is motivated by budget, and some of it is just a little bit of arrogance. It's like, I know words. I do words,
Well,
yeah.
Well, on that, I've actually taken a Gotham writer's workshop, and the person that was teaching it was an award-winning writer. And that question came up, how do I find an editor? And she says, well, that's what I'm teaching you to do. So, I mean, I guess it kind of works. It depends on who you are. Maybe some people have more of an objective eye than others. That was my question about beta readers. And the thing about beta readers is you typically would want somebody you don't know, just people out there, to send it to you. And I get what Rob's saying, because I have a wife that's like that. She'll tell me what's up, what I don't like to hear constantly. But that's why one of the reason why I brought up beta readers too, is because I understand he says it's not part of the editing process, but if they're going to give you some type of critique that you feel that it kind of does need to change, doesn't it actually kind of become part of the editing process?
I do want to ask Mike a question about this. He says if a book does not leave me wondering what happens next, I feel robbed. Isn't that absolutely true? Like when you get to even a book where the series ends and they don't leave a door open, isn't it so dissatisfying to not, like, I hate when they show you the characters 30 years later and they've answered all the story and you're like, I wish you just left it open. I like the cold openings are also good for a cold ending where you get to imagine where they go next and just give me a little grain. Don't you agree, Mike? And Chuck says he wants to come on and talk. We'll try to get him a link in the next few minutes. But we do also want to hit up the, what do we have? 2 other topics. And the one topic I want to get while I'm giving Chuck the link. And we'll go a little bit in overtime this week because last week, turns out YouTube didn't have any problems with us going a little over for once.
Cool.
So we have a good conversation going on there. And I'm getting text right now as I'm working on something in the background like I always do about the thing I'm working on. So I'm going to pass this on to you guys because you know what time it is, right? If I'm passing it to both of you, that should be the clue.
Oh.
That's the clue right there.
We got it. We got it. Reapers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me pass that to C a little bit because I've got to.
I'm gonna drag it.
I wasn't expecting that.
I have it for you guys. Don't worry. I have the thing I created for you guys for the other day. So
cool.
We have everything ready to go. You're up. Talk about Reapers.
All right. You want me to throw the pitch out there, or
that'd be good. Yeah.
All right. When spirits can be harvested and sold for energy, the Ragtops must navigate psychic vampires, alien reverends, and other money-hungry groups to reap that sweet, sweet spiritual gold. It's a new story coming to the Terraform Continuum. What's that about, Meredith?
On Valentine's Day. Launching on Valentine's Day, the day of love, we're going to give you the love of comics.
Well, and I want to just pivot back to Terraform Comics a little bit too, because that is coming up really soon. And we've got a couple of stories. Rob's been putting that together as far as the stories that are going to be in it. Reapers is going to be in there. It is February 14th through St. Patrick's Day. So that's a good chunk of time. For that, and it's coming up really fast, so I'm really excited about that. But so it's kind of funny because Rob said, what's your elevator pitch, and I basically sent him like the back cover description. You guys ready for it? Are you ready for it?
Not to Meredith's thing. I do want to quickly say this for those who don't know, and Chuck knows I'm a big fan of elevator pitches. Elevator pitches is 1 to 2 sentence, guys, 10 to 30 seconds. Everyone makes the mistake and they give the synopsis of the story as an elevator pitch. No, don't do that. That is wrong. That is the wrong way. An elevator pitch has to be quick and you want them asking you questions. A synopsis is explaining something. An elevator pitch is getting them to want more. It's like when you go to hit on someone in a public place, you tell them a joke right away. It's the same idea. You're breaking the ice. You're warming them up.
The synopsis is when the person that you've given the elevator pitch to hits stop and says, "Go on."
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's Chuck, by the way. Just so everyone knows, that's Chuck's voice. He's entered the realm. We'll be with him in a minute. But we just want to get through this. Go ahead, Meredith.
Well, and what I wanted to say about that is, again, because of my love for words, I tend to be a little bit wordy. So I kept on going, and I'm like, well, I want to include this. I want to include that. There is that difference between the elevator pitch and the synopsis. So are you guys ready? All right, so Reapers is a cyberpunk story that follows Billy and Darlin in a dystopian future. This world harvests a rare and powerful form of energy that's used for fuel. Some factions believe the Gerasol Lights is a money-making opportunity, while others believe they are residual energy of the dearly departed. And there you go. No reaction? Oh, no, that's not good, guys.
So what inspired Reapers?
What was that? I didn't hear you.
What inspired Reapers? I guess I'll jump into the reaction. I guess I want to learn more about this. You guys took an interest in my book. I want to get an interest in yours.
I want to pass that to C because he started off with the clay. And here's the thing with the Terraformed Continuum group on Facebook. It just started off in a conversation thread and we were talking about it. And it was like, he says, I've got a story idea. And I was just like, hey, I would love to try my hand at writing it. And he says, I'll send you the clay and I'll pass it to C.
Yeah. I guess what kind of brought it forefront was there was a poll on Twitter. Somebody asked what should be the next, I can't remember what the question was, but they gave you categories. Should it be cyberpunk, supernatural? Should it be westerns? And I said, well, why not paranormal cyberpunk? And so I've always had that. I always wanted to do something with the rockabilly type style. So that's kind of what it all meshes in there together. So you got 3 different. I don't want to call because I don't know if you could necessarily say. I guess rockabilly is a genre too, but 3 different genres kind of wrapped up into one.
Well, I guess I'll there. So you have the rockabilly influence. Was that also influenced by a lot of the B movies or a lot of the sci-fi that was as a cult following of that time? Did that influence the story? Yeah,
that would be for you, I would think.
Yeah, a lot of it was like taking some of these ideas and going, okay, so there's an element of fantasy and paranormal in here, as well as that realism. If you're looking over here at the art and stuff like that, you see kind of like that greaser vibe, with the pool skirt, the jeans, the greaser hair, and you're seeing those elements that you recognize as far as like where she's walking, you see the wooden fence and stuff like that. But then you look at his hand and you're like, wait a minute, what is that? It's a mechanical hand. So bringing in those elements and then bringing in the all of these different elements. And quite honestly, it's really fun and interesting to bring all of those elements and trying not to make it a hot mess, which it could do because of that. But then the styling is strong. I mean, the artwork is just amazing. And one of the things that Rob said when we were sitting together, and this is what we're doing, this is the process that we're doing in Terraform with Continuum, is bringing the writer in, bringing the artist in, collaborating in a way where there's that mentorship and that back and forth communication. And he's like, where are you going with this story? What's happening here? I'm like, you're only getting a little taste of this. You are getting an introduction into Billy and Darlin, where they're coming from, where they're going, and it's that whole mini arc to say what's happening next, and that is really exciting. To bring in all of these different factions, where there's that paranormal element and that realism, and putting it together. And I'm going to even say there's that, I think a good story sometimes, depending on how epic it can be, has that almost like that religious aspect to it without picking sides or anything, because that in and of itself can be a character. And making sure that we navigate that well and with compassion and being smart about it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm really very excited about this.
You mentioned that it was all about balancing all this, the aspect of the realism and the cyberpunk and the paranormal. Was it hard to find that balance? Was it hard to did you have to work for it to get that right feel, or did it leave you feeling like there could be more of something else or less of something else? I feel like you said the balance is the finding key to the story, and I'm interested in learning more about that.
Well, here's the really cool thing about it is, so I mentioned in the synopsis, the Gerasol lights, that even though it's not like a human or a humanoid character, that in and of itself is a character. That is something that you're going to want to pay attention to. And it's almost like, and I'm going to bat that back to Rob with his story in the anthology, where, and it was Cthulhu Invades Odds, where the Yellow Brick Road is the character. So almost taking those elements and going, just thinking about it just a little bit differently to make it interesting. So it's not the same old story necessarily.
Well, can I say something? And one thing about that is, as far as your question is, and also these elements also kind of have a tendency to play off each other. For instance, you're using a paranormal thing to fuel the other. For instance, you're using the spirits as energy to fuel the cyberpunk electronic energy movement, as it were. So it kind of has an interplay to that. And then when the rockabilly style, that kind of there is a huge rockabilly movement in I don't know if it's Japan, what have you, but that there's a culture there for that. So it has that, rebel without a cause. There's you're selling this new thing on the black market. So it kind of has that kind of feel to it.
What timeline is this in, effectively?
It's ambiguous.
If we were to say from
technologically,
technologically, I would say in my head it's about 100 to 200 years in the future. But we didn't want to put in a timeline because we didn't want to date it.
So when you like I'm looking at this one page, I'm trying to anyway, and it actually looks kind of like 20, I don't know, more like 40, 50 years ago. Am I wrong in the structure?
No, in fact, that's like the neighborhood that went bad.
Okay,
but it's in the future.
So do the rest of the structures look futuristic, or are they more like the 50s?
It's a little bit of the elements are a little bit of both. Because of the art form in itself, when you see the buildings, when you see the landscapes and stuff like that, you're going to see vehicles that have kind of like the Mad Max styling, with maybe a little bit of Star Wars, like hover vehicles type of thing. So it's kind of like that gritty. If you go to, let's say, Star Wars, for example, the Cantina, it's gritty and stuff like that, but we can assume that it's in the future because of their technology.
But it's not in the future. That's in a long, long time ago. Star Wars is a long, long time
ago. It depends. It depends on if you're in the story, right?
In a galaxy a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that whole weird dynamic, which I again, you find it interesting because it's, yes, you're seeing that because it's taking you into that world of a story that happened a long, long time ago. But at the same time, as a person who's watching it now, we don't have the lightsabers, we don't have the lasers or anything like that. So, or going through space. So there's that element of futuristic things, and it's taking you into that world.
When I read it, Chuck, when I read the script, it's basically the Batman animated series rules, where it's taking place in a world that's not ours. It has future tech, but mixes in past tense.
So
And in a way, there's kind of like like my husband left me a note, and he goes, like Blade Runner.
Yeah. Or Firefly, how there was kind of a switch backwards too at a point, even though the tech is higher up. They kind of had, like, when we do, like, we dress like we were from the 90s in 5 years, and we have that 90s throwback. Everyone will dress like they're from the 90s, but it won't be the original 90s.
Think steampunk.
Well, yeah. There's the thing then is that I feel like, and look, don't know enough about this necessarily to comment 100%, but I'm looking at it and I'm going, so with steampunk technically has technology that's beyond what we have, because a lot of times they have teleporters and all this lasers and all this kind of stuff. It's just utilizing steam. So what I would say is what you have here is not cyberpunk. It's something else. So what I would do is I would drop that cyberpunk thing. I don't think that's helping you, because the problem is people are going to come in looking for those elements, and it doesn't look like they're going to find them. You need to create your own term. There's diesel punk. There's all these different names. You need to find that one or create that one that works, because this is not cyberpunk from what I'm seeing. And I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just saying, like, if you want to sell this.
It's really funny that you say that, Chuck, because Rob, I see him.
I know him.
Said the same thing. Now, here's the thing that Rob came up with. Okay, he said a cyber rock story that uses souls as fuel. But for me, when I hear cyber rock, it's like, okay, that's different. But I don't want people to misinterpret that as being music. Like, there's no music video that's associated with this. So there's that challenge of, okay, so there are cyberpunk elements in here. Maybe the art is confusing where you're not quite getting that, and you're not going to see that in these panels necessarily. When you see the vehicles, maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. When you see the world that they're in, maybe that'll make a little bit more sense. From these, no, I don't know that would be a good representation of cyberpunk necessarily. And that's a challenge that we've had is, what do we call it? Because it is different.
If I could ask something, like when you mentioned that you take a lot of...
Alex, Chuck was actually waiting.
Oh,
so
sorry. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, you might not have seen it. Yeah, he was waiting. Go ahead, Chuck.
So the thing is that what we need to understand about these punk things is that the word that comes before punk is actually what fuels your world. Cyberpunk. The cybernetics fuel that world. Steampunk, diesel punk, all that kind of stuff. It fuels your world. So none of those things fuel your world. You do have technology, but that's not what it's about, because it's what fuels the technology. So for you guys, you'd be spirit punk. And I would start coining your own term. We have spirit punk. What the hell is spirit punk? Well, that right there will get people excited and make them go, oh, okay, they've just created something new. Now, I would look and make sure that there's nothing else like this first, because there are a list of these punks that I'm not aware of. But if you're coming on something new, I'm trying not to swear. If you're coming on something new, grab that by the balls and be that new thing. Because I feel like what you guys are trying to do is you're like, we're building something new, but we don't want to scare you. Nah, scare them, man. This stuff happens all the time. We're used to it. Have you seen the years we've just dealt with? Find your name. I think Spirit Punk is cool, but there's other things that you could definitely play with. And just grab it by the balls and be that. But I think the problem is that you guys are you're floundering and you're having a hard time finding your pitch, your thing that's really going to make you you. And by utilizing things that people already are aware of, it's just going to muddy it up and they're going to be like, that's not what I came in for. But if you say it's this, then they get to come in, they get to go, well, I don't even know what that is, so you get to tell me now.
And that's the struggle, because not being like unfamiliar, that scares people away too. Go ahead,
you guys
Rob.
also, I said it, you guys aren't punk. Using cyberpunk's the wrong thing. You're missing everything about punk. You are more rockabilly. You know, to Alex's point.
But that was punk in that day.
No, it wasn't. Punk is completely different. Trust me, I hung out
in the 1950s.
Greasers were punk. I'm sorry.
No,
Greasers were punk.
There's a slight difference just in the way we're
But Rob, Alex did have something that he wanted to say.
But I'm talking visually. When you say punk, you're gonna have a different visual thing. You don't have punk in your story. You want, and I told you that you want to walk away from punk. Punk's not you. Find a different term. And she chose one of the 10 I threw out there. I did give her 10 other ones that she could have done, and I said, "Go make your own." Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I just wanted to point out this. When you mentioned the rockabilly, and it goes back to what I said about like having like these B-movie influences. It makes me think a lot of like ray gun gothic, you know, like the kind of Flash Gordon or like the Jetsons or something. You know, you get the sense of future, but there's also like this like elements of like the past, and that's what really got me going there. So maybe punk wouldn't be the right girl, but maybe like a rock, like a cyber gothic or something, or spirit gothic. That might be a better way to put it. So, I mean, again, maybe you shouldn't put it on, but that was just what I was thinking, because like I was like, you have like this rockabilly, ray gun, cyber like technology and paranormal. It's like you have all these influences from all these different genres, and I think that's really what makes the book stand out. You know,
and it really makes it hard to find that. And not that I would ever want to pigeonhole this story, because it is quite expansive and it does touch on a lot of those things. So how do you find that element to kind of give it its own genre without confusing everybody? And that's been the struggle. So, you know, when I say cyberpunk, it's that certain amount of familiarity, but listening to you guys, I mean, it's like, okay, if that's not ringing, you know, true for you guys, it's like, okay, we need to pivot. And I'm good with that. I love that feedback, because we want to make sure that we pitch this out correctly.
Pivot.
Without scaring people, you know, without being like so confusing for others, you know, that they're like, no, like I don't get it at all.
I think it would be, and I guess, like, personally, I think it's better to have to create your own thing and people go, ooh, what's that, than to tell them they're getting one thing and not give them that at all. And that is the scary thing about blending a bunch of things together, is that what you end up getting is you end up getting this thing that you can't sell because you don't know what the fuck you made. You know what I mean? And so... it's why, you know, like if you think of a color wheel, you know, of course we have the red and the orange or we have, you know, red and yellow and then orange and all that kind of stuff. And then we start to have things like that. And you then are able to describe them by their closeness to red or orange or to something else in between there. So if you're able to do something like that, where you're able to use a term like punk or something like that, then makes people go, okay, cool. So I know it's like this, but it's not that. It's something different. It's between these two poles. And then you're giving it to them. But what you're doing is you're pointing them at the wrong pole, and they get there and they go, well, that's not what this is at all. And so that will be definitely what you get, is you get a bunch of people who come in and go, that's not what I bought.
And Mike makes a good point here with his comment. Rob, do you want to pull that up, the punk ethos? Do you see
Why
it?
would you ask me to pull it up if you can see it? You have the ability to pull
All
it
right,
up.
here we go. The punk ethos is primarily made up of beliefs such as nonconformity, anti-authoritarianism, anti-corporatism, a do-it-yourself ethic, anti-consumerist, anti-corporate greed, direct action, and not selling out, which is exactly what this story encompasses. So I feel okay with including punk in that, if that is the general accepted definition.
You know what you should do? In all seriousness, do this. When you're going to use a word, go to Google.
I do. Oh, I do.
Look at the images that come up.
Mhm.
Then look at your story. Look at the images. Look at your story. And if you suddenly go, okay, they don't look alike, you know you're in the wrong vein. Try to find something that lands closer to where you are versus what you want it to be. Because that's what Chuck's kind of saying is you're trying to make it something, but you're missing. And I've been trying to tell you that for a few weeks now. And it's not because I want you not to use I love cyberpunk. It's because I'm afraid, because I do love cyberpunk. And I've been part of cyberpunk. I didn't even realize that they said it was dystopian. It was never meant to be dystopian. It was just our future. It was always just us screwing up in our future. Like the original version.
But that is in itself dystopian.
But it's honest. That cyberpunk is more honest than dystopian. Dystopian's like something blew up. No, we're fuck ups. We screw up our own country. You know, like this is just what we did. This is our fault. And I love that about cyberpunk. It took the grittiness of everything and ripped it apart, and it was very honest, and it was very on the floor. And everyone who doesn't know this, because I know there might be people who don't know, and I'll pass it to you, Alex. Cyberpunk started as a game. It was a game. That was it. It was a game that people sat around and played in the 60s, and they were thinking of things that we weren't, like late 60s, early 70s, and then when hacking became a thing, it really influenced Cyberpunk and took it to the next level. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, I'm not sure if this has helped. I've been kind of listening to this, and it sounds like to me with all the different elements that you have in this story, which makes it awesome, that maybe there's not one weird way to put it into one element, but instead maybe call it a hybrid or an amalgam of genres, or maybe even go as far as a hodgepodge. Or I'm not sure if that would help, but I think that's probably one of the best ways to kind of sell what you're going here is you got taking elements from all of these and you're amalgamizing them, to the one story that really sells, So I'm not sure if that helps, but that's just a thought that came to mind, and I just I think that's what what your story kind of is,
So, the thing that came into my head just by you saying that was spirit punk hybrid.
Yeah.
I mean, does that
That won't work. Spirit punk is a Asian genre.
Oh, is it?
It's actually a thing.
Yeah, I had no idea. By the way, that's why I said I don't know if this has been done before.
What about?
That's the struggle, because we are putting in so many of these elements, and to somebody who hasn't read the story yet, they're going to be like, "What is that?" And it could be a hot mess. But really, the way that we're gearing this story together is very exciting, and there are a lot of these elements where it's recognizable, but it's different, and I love that. To me, it's very exciting as a writer to push myself like that.
I think that could be one of your big selling points. It's when you give people this book and they read it, it's it could be one of the turning points is you have all these open discussions of what this best way to define this book, you can't build this fan base around it, and then this fan base just comes in, you give their opinion on it, and they're like, no, it's this way, no, it's like this. It's like this whole, you've created this whole fandom discussion topic within your book, and I think that could be a big selling point for you. It's okay, we're giving you, we have a good way to put on it, but we want to know what you guys think of it,
And Chuck put in something in the private chat, which is kind of cool. Can I share that?
Yeah, please do.
What do you guys think of soul punk then?
Let's see. Soul punk to me, that does sound like a cool term, but it kind of feels like it would have some sort of jazz elements to it or something, a lot of 70s feel to it, the music.
And I don't mean to be rude, Alex, and step on it, but two things. One, we really should move on to the why we brought Chuck on here, and
right.
Two, there are elements to why I can't answer that. So the rest of this conversation should happen privately. because there are things that we're not ready to discuss in this. And if we go any further, we're going to get to a point where we're giving away something when all we're giving them is 6 pages in a couple of weeks. So we're going to pause it right now. We're not going to go any further with this. We're going to talk to Chuck about the editing, because he said he had some suggestions for editing. So that's why we brought him on this morning. Go ahead, Chuck. Tell us, what did you want to talk about?
So, you guys were talking about trying to find good editors, and first off, also often someone will say, "I'm looking for an editor," and names will come up, and my name does come up an awful lot. But don't pick me just because my name came up right away. Actually, do your research. Like, I would love to work with you, whomever you are, but I'm not the only person out there, and there's a lot of people who, feel them out, man. What do they do? What are they good at? Well, ask people, hey, who's your editor? What do you like best about them? Don't necessarily focus on the negatives. Of course, if they offer you negatives, then that's probably right away that's telling you something. But, why do you like your editor? What do they do for you? There's also a place here on Facebook called the Comic Book Editors Alliance. You don't have to be an editor to go there. It's run by my personal mentor, Stephen Cole, who's been in the business for 25 or 30 years. He's absolutely amazing, so intelligent. And it's not only there to teach editors, but also to teach other people what editors do, and even to help them sort of, understand the elements of editing that are required in comics, because it's not like a book. There's an awful lot of different types of jobs that editors can have. So I think that'd be a really good place. But you know what? If you really care about trying to get the best out of your book and the best out of an editor, ask around, find out realize the elements that you need work on, and try to find someone who can complement that and really hit those weaknesses and really make you and your story as strong as possible. Yeah.
Right.
Those are just really good points. You should really be doing your research. It's like with everything you do. It comes down to research.
Alex, the sad thing is that there's so many people in this industry who don't get an editor, first off. And they go, oh, well, I can't afford it. That is bull. That is absolute crap. You see, I stopped myself from saying the F word. It's absolute crap, because we are the least expensive of any one of the positions that you fill. That includes your letterer. Okay? So get over your crap. You're being a cheap ass, and you're willing to sacrifice what could make your book better by either being cheap or not admitting that there is an ego level there that you're not willing to deal with. And at the end of the day, as your editor, you pay me. But I can't tell you what to do. Right. Everything I say, even if I say you got to do this, it's still a suggestion, because you can tell me no. And I have no leg to stand on. There's nothing I can do. I can't stop you. I can't change anything. I work for you. You're the boss. You're going to put the book out with my name or without it, with my changes or without them, whatever. Mm-hmm. So get rid of that ego. It's absolute crap. It's not going to help anybody.
And that kind of, I was going to say, that kind of speaks to what I was saying before, for me personally, because I've been writing for such a long time, prose, not necessarily comic books, that it would probably do me a lot of good to get an editor. But again, there's that sense that there's that little bit of arrogance that I admit that I have. And so if I go without getting somebody to look at my work, then I have to own it later if it comes back to bite me.
Yeah, I would say it's better to get someone and not listen to their stuff than not get anybody at all. And I know that sounds kind of dumb, because you're like, isn't that sort of the same thing? But at least by getting those suggestions, let's say you handed me a script, I gave you, 50 suggestions on how to fix your book, and you said no to all of them. And I'm like, okay, fine. You put the book out, and then you get people coming back and they're going, well, I really didn't like this, or this, or this. And then you get to look and you get to go, Oh, so many of those were his suggestions. Oh shit. You learned a lesson. You know what I mean? Like you learned something. So I would almost say, even if you're not going to listen to them, get them, hear what they have to say, and then you can kick your own ass later when you find out that they were, at least in some positions or some places, correct.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Chuck, because that's actually how the creative process between me and my writer works. You know, like I've become more open-minded as we work. And there was a time where I wasn't ready to hear what his thoughts, but like, you know, even today, but there's something that I'm just not like too sure about what he says, and then like I give it some thought, and I realized that he was right. You know, like, it's better to have those suggestions and at least consider them than not have them at all, because you know. And when we're talking about ego, I can honestly say that I've had some ego issues before. Maybe not in the way of like I don't want to hear it, but just like more about worry about where I want my comics to take me. And like honestly, an ego is just going to hold you back in this game. You know, I mean, sure, you got to have some principles, but you cannot let them just like get in the way of wanting to actually do good work. You know, you got to be able to listen. You got to take feedback. You got to be able to put aside like any personal issues to just put out the best that you want to give people.
You know what's nice about an editor? For the most part, the editor cares more about the book than they care about you. Exactly. And I know that sounds bad, but that's actually really good. Because the problem is that you and me and whomever else is making this beautiful baby, who is the most special little book in the world, it needs to get beaten down a little bit, and it needs to learn, and it needs to get bigger and better than it is. And so at least if someone is more worried about it being better than it being theirs, then they're going to give you some serious things to consider. And at least if you have those things to consider, maybe you might go, oh, I don't love your suggestion, but that does show me that I'm not necessarily right here. What if instead of doing those two things, I do this third thing?
Yeah, exactly. And like what you say is like that is, when it comes right down to it, that is the job of the editor to like care more about the book than the person writing it, because like they have to make sure that the book is the best of its ability, you know? Mm-hmm. That's essentially I mean, like, not to put a like superficial spin on it, but like that is essentially what it comes down to being an editor. You got to care more about the book than the person writing it. I mean, you got to like care, like consider their thoughts and feelings, but you also got to be like, okay, you got to be like you got to put the book first.
Yep.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question, because I've actually had somebody edit my stuff, and it was a steampunk story. They didn't quite understand the steampunk aspect of it, so they would edit it. They would edit it in a certain way, how they would see. You know, in steampunk, you deal with traditional or an older English than we deal with now. Now, when that editor came back after reading some steampunk books, it's like, oh, now I get where you're going at. So it's really important to find an editor who's going to mesh and understand the style that you're going for also, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You should be asking, what genres are you strong at? I'm doing this genre. How are you with this? So if you were to say to me, Chuck, I'm doing a steampunk book. How are you? And I'm like, I'm pretty good. It's not my number one at all, but I overall understand the elements of it. There are people who could help you more, but if at the end of the day you want my sentimentalities and at least at that point, okay, cool. When it comes to the steampunk stuff, you're more the expert than I am. So if I make a suggestion, it's easier for you to ignore it and kind of go, oh, okay, cool. But this is more steampunky. You just don't get that. It's all right. And then that way, if I mention something else, you're like, oh, okay, cool. That's not even a steampunk thing. That's something different. So at least you know where the where everything works there and where they're going to be the best for you. So yeah, you might, like right away, as soon as you said they didn't understand steampunk, I'm like, then that might not have been the best editor for you.
And again, I think that comes down to like doing the research, like you said, Chuck.
Yep.
Rob, did we have another topic? You said that we had a couple others.
We did at a point, but at this point we're a little over. So I think we should just wrap up, and we can always revisit the topics next week.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. I think it's important to always talk about that. I definitely think that like there's a bunch of ego that goes into creating, and it's weird to be the story editor because you know your talents as a writer, and you can see a lot where other people, and I'm sure Chuck feels this way because he's not just an editor, he's a writer. You can see where people are leaving meat on the bone, and you can see where they're making misses, and you can only try to take them to the edge of it. As you guys saw today on the program, I've told Meredith everything Chuck just said to her, but Meredith's just not ready yet because she hasn't found the term that works for her best. So she's going to keep going back to what she feels is best, and that's just the nature of the beast. But then she'll come up with something she does. A lot of that comes from being in front of people, having those conversations. And this is the important part of that you don't understand about editing. The editor sometimes understands that you're going to be in front of a table and having to explain what they're trying to help you edit. Mm-hmm. They're seeing the future that you can't see, and that comes from experience. The one thing you can't teach is experience. You need to live it. You need to learn it. You need to be at 100 shows, pitching books at 100 shows, talking to 100 people, and hearing in your mind already, well, this doesn't seem like this. Why would you call it that? And remember, I've screwed up. WrittenSins.com is how comic book advocates started. And it became your horror site? No, but every story is a written sin, and we're dealing with it. You spend too much time explaining why you're so clever, you're going to stop being so clever. Mm-hmm. If you have to explain it, you've lost. That is the simplest editing rule. It's just same as in comedy. You have to explain the joke. Unless they're really stupid, then you didn't do a good job telling the joke. And that's kind of what we're going on. That's why I think editing is so important. I think people miss the train all the time on editing and don't realize how seriously fundamental. Like Meredith said, she'll do it on her own, but what she left out was that I'm going to wind up looking it over for the lettering aspect, and that's part of editing. So she's not going to be doing it alone because there is that oversight from Continuum that's going to be there for all the stories that they're doing right now. So, just be aware of how crucial editing is. I never stop editing anything. I'm editing our site as we speak today. I'm always doing something. You're always evolving. Editing shouldn't be something you run from. It should be something you embrace. How many times have I asked you, Chuck, why?
Every time I say anything.
Why do I do that? Because I learn. And if you notice, I don't ask that same why ever again. Because I've learned it. And I've actually used things against him that he taught me. And he's like, oh, that's true. But in this case, this is that. And I'm building that foundation of understanding it. Ask your editor why. Don't tell them they're wrong and you're right. Start off by saying, well, why do you want to do this? Yeah. Why? And you'll have a real conversation with an editor. You won't be combative. You'll be friends. You don't always have to feel like someone's trying to ruin it. Well, pretend that they're trying to make it better.
And I want to add to that too. There should be a mutual respect, from an editor speaking to the creator and the creator to their editor, where I think a lot of times when we present our work to somebody whose advice we really take to heart, that a lot of times we might take the story in a direction that maybe it wasn't intended. So you have to fight for your characters. You have to fight for your story arc also, and have that respectful communication and go, okay, when the editor says, okay, now I understand, now you need to make that a little bit more clear. There's that too, instead of kind of rolling over and compromising, I think, on the story. It goes both ways, but that mutual respect also is very important.
In the end of the day, it's about the fans, not about you. You're putting something out for someone to purchase, to buy, to own, to read, to own. Yeah. It's no longer your story the minute you print it. You have to own that. You still own the IP, but once you put it out there, it's for them to judge. So it's not about, and I made this mistake, and me and Chuck have talked about this. I'm not writing books for myself. If I was writing books for myself, I could do all the things I want to do. There are things I'd love to do that I just can't do right now because I haven't earned that right to do it. And you have to understand that. You have to be willing to earn it. And you have to be willing to give the people what they want and what they expect to see. Too many changes, too many things of explaining, and you start losing an audience. Go ahead, Chuck.
No, I didn't have anything else to add to it.
I was actually going to say I wrote this down as a topic for a future brunch. Is, do you write for yourself or for your audience? I think that would be a great topic to.
Person who writes for an audience for themselves is writing their book for an audience of one. That's the end of the topic.
Says Rob.
Says Rob. Says Rob. Because if you write it for yourself, it's a vanity project and it's never going to work. You have to be willing to be open. You have to be willing to hear other things.
See,
I wouldn't say never say never.
I was going to say that that could be a much broader topic and vast.
Sounds like a debate. That sounds like a debate.
No, not necessarily, because when I have the stories in my head, it's to get them out of my head. So they are definitely, for me, they're personal. Now, is it marketable? That's the other story.
Well, let me ask you a quick question about that. When you created it, do you think I'm going to create this just for me, or did you just create it?
A lot of it, again, the stories in my head.
No, just a simple question. Just did you create it for yourself, or did you just create it?
I don't think I could.
I don't think I can differentiate that.
But you never started off saying, I'm going to write this for myself, and then came up with the idea, right?
Yeah, it's an idea in my head. I put it down on paper.
And then what was the first thing you wanted to do when you were done writing it? You wanted to share it with people, right?
But she didn't write it she wrote it in the regards of getting it out for herself. As now to share editing. How about editing for audience?
Editing for an audience. That's the question.
No, what I'm asking is, when you wrote it down, didn't you want to share it with someone?
Not all of them. No.
Okay. Well, the ones you didn't want to share, those were the ones written for you. That's my point. If you want to share it with someone, you're not writing it for yourself. Mm-hmm. It's the simple truth. The minute you want to share it, you just wrote it for someone else.
I would love to. I would love to open that up as a conversation for a future topic, just to see what other people think about that.
Oh, I would too. I would poke holes. It would be so bad. I would poke holes in everyone's stuff, but it'd be fun to watch. It'd be so fun to watch.
You're not the end all be all, Rob. Damn.
Haven't you heard the world revolves around me? I mean, it just does. Every day I hear about the things that I'm doing.
Oh, it's your world. We're just visitors, right?
If you're going to blame me for everything, the orgasms are my fault too. So with that, we're out of here. We're going to let everyone say goodbye. We'll start with Chuck since he came in last.
What's going on, gang? I'm Chuck Pino, Pineau. You can find me on Facebook under that name. You can find me on Instagram under that name. You can find me on Twitter at Chucky Pin. You can find my Chuck's Raw Reviews on YouTube now. You can also find my my show, Chuck's Shop Talk, where I talk to and interview people in order to get into their processes, so all of us can be better creators and distributors and sellers, publishers, everything. You can go to facebook.com/bonfirepress and you can pick up some of my goods, such as Belial, Welcome to the Void, and Essence House, which is an audio drama, which I would love for you to check out on all of the streaming sites out there. Peace out.
Who's next?
I don't know, but we can keep looking at me.
Because you're beautiful, Chuck.
Right?
Hey guys, this is Alex. I want to say thank you for letting me be on the show, and thank you for checking out my work. You can find Zener, Master of the Mind, coming to Indiegogo, launching at the end of February. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, DeviantArt, all those places. We would love to have your support for our upcoming comics. Thanks. We have a lot of cool tier options for you guys for when the Indiegogo comes out. We think you will love it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. You guys rock. Stay creative. Hashtag indie support.
All right, I'm C. Michael Lanning, a freelance artist. You can find me sometimes over there on Silverline Comics on Wednesday Night Wham, talking about all sorts of weird topics there. And of course, you can always find me on Weekended on Friday as a co-anchor with Meredith Loughran. Check us out there, and anything else. So you're always looking for me up on Facebook and sometimes Twitter. So back to you, Meredith.
Okay. Am I putting myself up on the screen, Rob? I thought you had. Oh, there.
Before, and then you were fighting with me, so I was like, okay, I'm done fighting, and then she doesn't do it. You're killing me.
Hey, it's we got to figure this thing out. We're good though. We're good. Hey, I'm Meredith Lochran. I have a Kickstarter happening right now. It is the Compendium of Dread, an anthology of dark fiction. I've got about 3 days to go, and I want to finish strong. So we've already unlocked the 3-inch sticker and the bookmark. Trying to get to the 3rd stretch goal so that you guys can get the metal card. I've got it right here. So these are ready to go out. I've also got 5 stories that I'm going to be writing that are going to be really fun, and that is why when it finishes, you're not going to get the PDF immediately. Those stories are going to be included in the PDF as well as the softcover edition. And there are a couple of add-ons as well. So there's going to be a tote, and there is a coffee mug that is really cool. I cannot wait to have that in my hand. But you can follow me, guys. Head over to Geek Insider and terraformcomics.com. You can also go to Linktree if you want to follow me on my socials. That's linktree.com/MEREJ99. It has all of my links, so you can follow me. It's got my Kickstarter, my socials, and all the places that I contribute to. Rob, back to you.
I am so sorry. I'm in the middle of trying to answer someone's question. They needed some information right away. So I'm nerding out while I'm here. Thank you guys. You guys are all awesome for being part of the show. There's not much. You guys know who I am. I mean, Alex disappeared. Oh, I didn't even notice. Alex left us. Alex was great. Chuck, thank you for jumping on. Lanning and Meredith, always a great time hanging out with you guys. Thank you for all showing up. Thank you for all the comments. Sorry if we didn't get to all the comments today. This is the great thing about these conversations. We start with a list now of things we want to talk about, and then things we never thought about talking about an editor today, but so important. So glad we did it. Thank you all for being part of this. With that, we're out. Thank you for being part of this and making this show awesome. We'll see you next week to sit down and talk comics once again at 11 a.m. on Sundays.